We're open. We're open.
I'm gonna pull the whole thing down. I'm gonna bring the whole fucking diseased, corrupt temple down on your head. It's gonna be biblical.
Hello everyone, welcome to Patriots Across the Pond and Friends with Stewie and Elisa, episode 54. Today we've got a couple of amazing guests on. It's no coincidence at all they've joined us on the 17th, and it's also no coincidence that it's our 54th show, and 5 plus 4 plus 1 plus 7 is 17. Joe, Dave, welcome.
Welcome, guys.
What's up?
Thank you, guys. Good to be here.
Yeah. How are you both? How are you both? There's a lot going on.
Yeah, we're doing well. It's I think, as you guys know, it's crazy but amazing times we're living in, and there's certainly no shortage of information and D-class coming out to keep us all busy. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to just enjoy the ride every day, you know.
It's funny, if you guys saw the old movie, I think it's from the 90s, the 80s, Parenthood, with Steve Martin, and the little grandmother at the end talks about how riding the roller coaster, and she loved riding the roller coaster, and there were people sick and people screaming, and she just loved the ride. And that's the feeling I get a lot of times. You know, we're just watching it and we're not getting upset, you know, and then there are people who just don't get it. So, you know, it is a ride.
That is an absolutely amazing analogy for right now. It's like, what have we been looking at the last 2 weeks? It's like, MAGA's fractured. This isn't what I voted for. Poo-poo on Donald Trump. Gas is too high. And now look at today. You see what the stock market's doing, what silver's doing, what fuel's doing. It's like, you guys got to stop being panicking, to just take a breath and understand that we're going through a process. That's where I'm at with it right now. It's kind of awesome.
Exactly that. I've been asking most of my, I'm going to ask you a bit later. What is your message to the panicans, black pillars, and the doomers, the gloomers, and stuff? And I know you two will have a great answer for that. But Lisa, do you just want to? Would you just talk about the awakening something quickly? Because
yeah. So once again, guys, we're getting really close. April 25th and 26th here in New York. It's Western Nassau. So, you know, just to put that in perspective, about 40 minutes from Manhattan, 30 minutes or so from JFK Airport. We have an amazing group of speakers. Obviously, these two guys today, Dave and Rambo, are going to be there. We've got Jan Helper Hayes, Derek Johnson, Joe and Scott from Truth Stream, Brad Olson, Laura Worley, Lisa Schermerhorn, scroll it. My brain isn't. Patrick Gunnels. Yep. And Kerry Cassidy. Sorry. Our amazing sponsor, Matt Geiger, is going to be there. We've got Light Warrior Patriot Cat coming, Susan Lingenfelter, Mark Abrahams is going to grace us with a Zoom appearance. And then Stewie and I are going to be your MCs. Chris O'Connor talking about Secret Space Program. Lewis Herms is also going to be zoomed in. Lee Dundas. And, you know, get your tickets. The VIPs are all gone. They're still general admission. Last few days, we just had like a run on the tickets. You can get them by clicking right on the website. And if anybody's coming in from out of town, just let us know that we've got some deals with some of the local hotels. Did I leave anything out, Stu?
No, I think that's about it.
Yeah, that's it. So hope to see you guys there.
Wait,
Yeah, amazing.
I threw away all my pants and sneakers and jackets. Do I need that?
No, I'm not. Look, I'm coming over from the UK on Tuesday, and I'm not bringing anything like that. So don't worry about it.
Okay.
You can have your toes out and your little hands on if you like.
It's so funny. Like I wear, leggings, shorts, because you only have to look nice from, even when I see clients, because I do coaching, I have like the up part of me and I walk around the house. My kid's like, nice outfit, but it's so hard to think about getting dressed. I had to go to a funeral and I was like, do I even have pants? Do I even have slacks? Do I have anything that's looks like a nice, dress up? Because we just so natural these days, right?
Yeah. I had to go a couple of months ago. I had to go to an event for one of our sponsors, and it was like a 3-day event. And I get the thing, and it's like business attire. I'm like, oh crap! Well, all my business attire is in a storage unit in New York, so I had to run out here and buy all new stuff.
Oh God!
Just to wear something presentable, because we're all used to kind of just being behind the camera and paying attention from here up, like you said. But I'm really looking forward to next week. It's going to be very cool to get together. Anytime you can get a group of people together that are like-minded, that's why I'm constantly telling people, whatever you find in your area, even if it's just a coffee meetup with 3 or 4 people, go do it. You get the chance to go to talk face to face with like-minded people. Do it. It's a good thing for the soul.
And I think the important thing is we have chosen to, get on in front of the camera and, speak about things and have guests and do that sort of thing. But I hope that a lot of these events, not only bringing people together like-minded, and feeling, again, you said, Dave, we don't like to, but it's a safe place where we can talk, be ourselves, share that spiritual connection. But it also is a way to inspire people to do whatever. We all need to get into this movement somehow, whatever that means. We've been sitting back too long. That's why we're in the position we're in, albeit they poisoned us and, killed our pineal and did all these things and spelled us. But now we need to start taking action. And I think that's the key, whatever that is. That's why we have these events, to inspire people to start doing whatever their heart is telling them to do and use their voice.
Military-civilian alliance means military working down and the people working up. They're just taking their fucking time doing it, which is what we do all the time. Anyway, so it's always customary when you get new guests on just to go into their background a bit, and their awakening journey. So Dave, I know you had a bit of a journey through isolation and stuff, and it was really interesting to hear you talking about how you worked in China for quite a while. So if you could sort of go through your story. And Joe, you're one of the most, I know you just told us that some of your friends say you talk too much, but you are one of the most honest and genuine podcasters out there, and we all know you've got a colourful history and stuff, but you don't have to go deep into it here, because I was going to put anyone onto it. The interview you did with Ellen on Truth Teller Tales, it was about an hour and 20 minutes, I think, was amazing. And anyone that goes to watch that, if you don't laugh and cry watching that, it's
bring tissues.
Right with you.
Very touching.
Yeah. So, whoever wants to go first, the floor is yours.
I'll go. I'll try to keep it brief. But yeah, I mean, I was like anybody else, right? I grew up in Long Island in a fairly normal family, and did what society told you you're supposed to do. Went to high school, tried to get good grades, went to college. Came out of college, I pretty quickly realized I had a finance degree. I pretty quickly realized that Wall Street wasn't the thing for me. I guess maybe I had a little feeling back then that there wasn't something right going on there. I don't know. I always had a bad feeling when I went to work there. So I got out on my own when I was about 23. I spent 10 years building an import-export manufacturing business with a couple of my friends. That's, as you mentioned, Stu, that's where I ended up spending about 10, 12 years, about a quarter of each year, pretty much living in China, traveling around, working with factories and things like that. And then after that, I kind of did what was always my dream job, which is I got into real estate, and I became a real estate developer and started building condos and homes in Hudson County, New Jersey, and that kind of bled into the Trump era. And when he came down the escalator, I was extremely jaded with politics, like I think most people were. And I was one of those people that was saying, like, I didn't know a ton about politics, but I was sick of listening to the politicians we had. And so not knowing any of this stuff was in the works, obviously. I famously said to my business partner at the time and got laughed at. I said, I don't know. I said, I know who Trump is. I know the dude doesn't lose. And I don't know. I got this strange feeling he's going to win. Just pure gut, you know. And that was the end of it. You know, at the time, 2016 into 2017, I was just, you know, living in anyone that's ever lived in a city knows it's a bubble. It's an echo chamber. It's all about, you know, image and making money and who's got the better car and all that kind of, that's the life I was living. And so I wasn't paying close attention to what was going on, but where I think my first crack in the matrix happened, I always tell people, was in 2017 when he did the first big tax cut. And I'm a numbers guy, so I'm going in, I'm looking at the numbers, and I'm like, well, any which way you look at this, there's upwards of 90% of people that are getting a tax cut from this. And I started looking around at friends of mine, and there was people that were just like hating on it. And then there was polls coming out in the news that 72% of people are against the tax cuts. And I'm like, it didn't make sense to me. I'm like, what the hell is going on? Like, yeah, I knew the media leans left, but as we all know, like, they went a whole new level of insanity. And that's where I was kind of like, something's weird here. Something's off. And then that's when a lot of people I knew who I knew ideologically agreed with me on 9 out of 10 topics, and they started going in the opposite direction, like complete opposite. And I'm like, what's happening to this guy? Like, I know we agree on economics. I know we agree on a lot of things, immigration. We agree on almost everything. And this person's going in the complete opposite direction. So that was kind of the beginning. But like I said, I was just focused on working 18, 20 hours a day, building real estate. So I didn't have time to pay attention to really anything else. I just felt like something was off. And then, like most people, it was COVID. I had heard rumblings about Q. I looked at it a little bit in like 2019, but it wasn't until COVID came along. And I didn't buy it from day one. And that, as I've always said, it was because I was in China when like swine flu and SARS and that kind of stuff happened. And yeah, there was some people wearing masks, and they took your temperature at the airport. They had these like laser things, but like that was about the extent of it. They didn't do mask mandates. They didn't do curfews. They didn't do lockdowns. So I'm sitting here going like, what the hell is going on? Like, I'm not buying any of this. And one thing about me is like, I don't like being told what to do. That's just who I am. So when they started, you know, I'm walking in bars and they're telling me we got to take your cell phone number. Like, I was getting pissed off by it because I didn't buy it. And that was, we actually, I would say, escaped. We had a ski house that we rented up at Hunter Mountain up in the Catskills. And a group of us said, well, I'm not afraid of the virus. I'm afraid of all the insanity going on in the city. So let's just leave. And we went up there. We ended up being up there for 2 months. And, you know, like we talked about backstage, nothing else to do. I don't even remember what I came across or how it got started, but I started just jumping into podcasts. And I quickly found my way into Q, and it was over from there. Like, from there, I just couldn't stop looking at it. I couldn't stop researching it. And I never in a million years ever thought I was going to be in this type of situation. I've always been kind of a back of the house type of guy, but just over the time, the more I dug into it and the more I connected with other people, I ended up being a guest on a podcast at one point. And it just kind of went from there. And yeah, Stu, as you mentioned, there was a year in there, probably in like 2022, where I was very sick with, I had mercury poisoning, anxiety, depression, and I just kind of went through a year where I pretty much didn't leave the house. So I think it was just a combination of the illness and the gravity of everything hitting me at the same time. And I spent a year pretty much doing nothing but writing and putting what Newstreason originally was, which was a blog, and building that, and that kind of led to where we are today. A journey I would have never in a million years predicted, like I'm sure everybody else.
Wow. I feel like you're talking about my life a little bit because I spent a great deal of time in China and Hong Kong. We could talk about that for work, factories, except mine was toy business, and the Hunter Mountain. So that's like a whole other thing too. But what I love about your story is that you had that reflection time, like it might not have been an easy time, right? I've suffered a lot from anxiety too. It's awful. It's terrible, but you do grow, like it's like God's way of saying, I'm going to bring you from this point to the next point. Right. And that's what he did. He brought a whole new, like, look what you bring to the world now, through what.
Yeah. I believe that's what it is. It was a way of, it's not something you ever want to live through again, but, I'm also glad that I did. I think it was just, I do believe that it was God's way of being like, hang on, I'm just going to strip, I'm going to strip all your friends. I'm going to strip your business. I'm going to strip most of your money, and make you kind of see the forest through the trees and kind of reset and start you on a new path. Yeah, I do believe that's what happened.
Yeah. I mean, we've debated as well. You can talk about who's in control, full control, all these sorts of things. But during the COVID years, whether the white hats used that for certain purposes, we definitely think the lockdown was beneficial to so many people around this world, to get them researching and get them connected with their families again and get them looking at life in a different way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you said local action. Look at what came out of that. In particular, look at the how we activated parents. You had all those parents that had to sit home and they're looking there and they're watching their kid learning virtually, and they're looking at the screen going, wait, what the heck is going on? And people that don't realize the impact that had. I mean, just look at what's gone on in the 5 years plus, all the stuff that's gone on at school board meetings and city council meetings and all that. I mean, these meetings that were crickets for years. There'd be 2 or 3 people there. There's no matter where you look, there are people going and fighting and raising their voice and making their opinions heard. And that would never have happened without COVID and many of the other things we've had to live through.
Yeah. I mean, the kid thing was a big thing because we just assume falsely, whatever. I have family members who homeschooled their kids for years. And I was like, that looks good, but that's a lot of work, and so I didn't. I put my kids through the system. Parochial school. So you think they're in a parochial school, it's private, they want the funding. So I'm walking past the kids' rooms going, did I just hear that?
Yeah.
Are they kidding? Like, so it activated, and you would never know that because the kids are just, do you have homework? Okay, do your homework, dinner, got sports, this, that, the other thing. And now you, with your own ears, you're hearing these teachers. But like my thing was, and one of my biggest idols in life is Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I was like walking to the bathroom past my daughter's room, and I was like, what? I'm like, how do I tell this kid? You know what I mean? Because they're young, they're 15, 14. Like, how do you now say, like, I wasn't talking about that with them at that point, but now it's like, damn, they are learning some serious, and they're reading books like Lolita in a Catholic all-girls school. Like, how does that fit into everything? Yep. So yes, 100%. And we've all got stories with that.
Yep.
So Joe, we know a lot about your story because you've shared so much. So honestly, you want to share a little?
Yeah, I always try to give like a little bit different perspective, right? Because, you always tell one story and you kind of make it, of course, it always ends up in the last one. So I can do it in a different way. What I've just noticed yet again, it's not the first time, but I sit here and listen to Dave, who, no homo, has become like somebody that I have great chemistry with on screen, right? Which for somehow we complement each other very, very well. And I was just listening to him tell a story. And it's funny because on the surface, it seems like we come from such different places. But while he was talking that whole time, I was finding the parallels. Like there was a lot there that we shared that's similar, the anxiety and the other things, right? I just handled them slightly different, right? Let me back up just a step. So I'd be lying if I said I wasn't middle class. Like my mom and dad worked very hard to give us most of what we wanted and all of what we needed, right? That's the truth. But if I really look back at it, my dad did that by owning his own body shop and working full time at General Electric overnight. I barely saw the man for years, and I was left at home with somebody that was 12 years younger than my father and his wife. A lot of resentment there, but the truth is, she probably was pretty sick herself from some upbringing, right? Stepdaddy probably wasn't appropriate. Real dad passed away, right? She had her own issues. And so we grew up in this household where she lost a child before me, and then it was me, and then my brother, and then 9 years later, accidentally, my little sister showed up, right? I think me and my brother were playing, my sister not so much. But what I'm getting at here is these people worked very, 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 very hard to try to put like what's normal. I remember hearing that all the time, like a normal life together. What's normal, right? When dad's never home, when mom's always pissed about it, and the kids take the brunt over the whole thing, right? You hear people screaming upstairs, etc. And I was the oldest, and I don't think I handled all that very well. Right? I didn't handle getting hit with a belt very well, or eating a bar of soap, or any of those things. And I'm not saying that that's abnormal. I think that was fairly, it was something a lot of people went through. I'm not special in that. I'm not looking to play a victim, but I didn't, and this is where I take responsibility. I didn't handle it very well. So for me, it was like, okay, well, if I do really good on the sports field, then everybody hugs me and loves me. And if I get good grades, then everybody's okay with me. But I struggled with that part, right? I struggled with attention. I wanted the attention of the girls and the party because I didn't feel well inside. And this is, hindsight's 2020. I didn't realize it at the time. But that uncomfortability, that anxiety, the not feeling comfortable within my own skin led me to nothing but parties. And then, one thing led to another and led to another and led to another. And next thing you know, I'm in my mid-20s and I got nothing. I got nothing put together. I'm living paycheck to paycheck, just like my father was, right? Like when my dad would finally save up enough money to buy something like his favorite pickup truck, my mom would make him sleep in it for a month out on the end of the driveway, right? Does everybody remember any arguments like this growing up? I don't know. My mom was very controlling, right? And my dad wanted just a little bit of independence as the man in the house. And so I watched all of that conflict. And so anyway, I went and I filled that gap, that hole inside my chest, that feeling uncomfortable in my own skin with any chemical or girl or gambling or whatever it was at the time that would just help me feel outside of my own skin. And so I don't have the experience of Dave of being successful and seeing that the system worked that way. What I ended up having the experience of was going from middle class to the hood. And I ended up, and if anybody understands what I mean by the hood, I mean like North Philly, where it's like, cockroaches and barely paying rent and guns getting pulled and drugs being sold and overdoses. And as a matter of fact, I was Narcaned myself 8 times. I'll never forget waking up on the floor of a bathroom at a McDonald's in North Philly to, 2 medics. What do you call them? The people in the ambulance. They would always play. Yeah, that's what I meant. They would always play good cop, bad cop every single time. Like it happened so many times that I would go through it. I started to realize the pattern. One would tell me how big a piece of crap I am and I'm letting down my parents and blah, blah, blah. And the other one would say, there's help. We can help you. All you got to do is ask. We can show you that we can put you in the right direction. And they did this every single time. It was like a system. Yeah. And I picked up on that. And so I started to play the system because I was so uncomfortable in my own skin. Okay, sure, I'll get help. Stop yelling at me. Anyway, long story short, that snowball rolled down the hill and got bigger and bigger and bigger. And this is the part probably most everybody knows, but in case you don't. Okay, so look, I heard my dad say things throughout that period when he finally did show up at a T-ball game where he would go like, participation trophy? Like, why are they, excuse my language, but, like pussifying our society, right? I'm speaking in my dad's words. I apologize for that. But like, he was a Vietnam vet that wouldn't stand up when veterans were recognized because he didn't believe in what he was sent to war for, right? Like, that's the type of man, like his hands were never not greasy. He died under a car, basically, right? He was still under a car 3 days from the day he died. He was working on a transmission. Like, that's why I say that. So I ended up having to pay for my debt to society for doing things like drugs and, petty theft and a DUI for drugs, overdosing. That comes with charges. That leaves a paper trail. And so I got arrested in Portland, Oregon for an empty bag, residue, really. But, I mean, truth is they caught me doing drugs. And I left Oregon after that because I'm like, I went out there to try to get better. And lo and behold to me, I showed up, right? Like, I ran away from myself, but like I showed up right behind me and ended up making the same damn mistakes. So long story short, I ended up getting extradited from Pennsylvania all the way back to Oregon, right? 7 weeks, 3 airplanes, 7 jails. And when I land there at the last place I'm supposed to be, I only owe him a week of prison time. My dad dies the last day that I'm in there. And I find out within 24 to 48 hours later that his dying wish was that everyone go votes for Donald Trump. And I don't know if anybody could relate to this, but there's a whole lot of guilt, shame, and remorse that comes with dying in jail when your hero passes away. Right? So I made it my mission to try to figure out why he said that. And the rest has kind of been out there for the public to see. And here we are.
Thanks for sharing that, Joe. I mean, that really resonates. I've got a similar story, but I only went about 50% of the way you did. But I had quite a good childhood, really. And then we all started going out drinking, partying. That's what it was all about, girls and stuff. And then in the early 90s, I lost my girlfriend. She died. That's another story. But I spent the next 15, 20 years partying, basically. And that's just where I felt closest to heaven at that, in those times. That's where I had a raving family in those days. It's similar to what we've got now as a truthing bond we've got. I was surrounded by love and stuff. But yeah, Joe, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, that was beautiful. My childhood was challenging, and I had a little bit the reverse Joe than you. My father was, Sicilian, very volatile,
My mom was Sicilian.
What?
My mom's Sicilian.
Okay.
Some sort of.
My mom's half Sicilian.
Yeah.
Okay. So, the male Sicilian, there's a whole thing, right? And came from a line of, abusive men. So it was kind of challenging, but I think that made me very rebellious because truthfully, he should have killed me at some point, because when he would be so dictatorial, I would be rebellious, so after a while, getting threatened every night, like knowing if I answered back at the dinner table, I was going to get a smack.
Yep.
I was like, gonna go for it because the smacks thing will go away and I don't have to, I know I said it. But I think what happens is we start to go down that path where we don't really fit in with a lot of people. We feel kind of like black sheepish. And then, of course, with all the awakening stuff, right, where we're looking at stuff going, I don't know, that kind of might be an inside job, and then people are like, what are you saying? How unpatriotic of you? And, and I don't know, she kind of looks like a man. I don't know too many women that look like linebackers like that, and of course you're crazy. So I think like all of us started to whatever, God kind of had this plan, like we all just were dotted all over and we kind of found our soul family, right? And then that that like so that at least that's been my experience. But I think that having kids was a big part of sort of the growing up, like where you say, well, I could be a kid forever and be pissed off at my childhood and feel all resentful and this and that, or I could like try to change maybe the bloodline a little bit and do things differently. And it's going to be a struggle every day because you're fighting against all this shit that you were, you remember, you experienced. But I think that's what our purpose is. And I think we do that on a grander scale now because we're trying to get people to think, right? Something they don't do. We're trying to, so I don't think it's an accident that we all find each other and we all resonate and our stories have like little bits of.
Oh, Lisa, can I jump in there? Because that's yet again, I think it's a brilliant analogy. Look, I don't know about all of you, but I'm pretty sure we all felt very alone at one point in time. Like that black sheep concept is the idea of feeling outside of the herd or the flock or whatever. And this movement really kind of flocked all the black sheep, like Black Sheep Matter, right? So we all kind of flocked together.
I love that.
Right. And it turned into this where we go one, we go all thing. I have now fallen in love with people's stories, where they come from, where we're going, right? Unless you take a knife literally out behind me and stab me in the back, you are part of my team now. You know what I mean? And it takes a lot for me to get that upset, in which case, at this point in time, I've gotten a little bit better of just walking away from it rather than trying to fight it, which Dave knows has been a process for me. But that whole flocking together as the black sheep thing, I think is such a great picture to be painted because we're not alone. We do have like this family to grow with and move forward with, which is why I can't wait to be at your event.
Yeah, it's gonna be great.
There's a reason God dotted us all around the world. I don't say globe anymore, all over the world. Right, so we could wake ourselves up and find each other because he'd have put all us truthers in the same place. We'd all be sitting in the field around the fire singing Kumbaya together, wouldn't we? Potentially, So we've had to wake ourselves up and connect and move this awakening forward. So
we want to definitely get into some of the geopolitics stuff. But I just want to say one other thing we were just saying about the I just lost my train of thought. It was kind of funny because everybody here, I'm sorry, Stu, we're just like having this Sicilian connection here. And I lost my train of thought, but oh, darn.
All right. I'll just say something quickly while you remember that.
Yeah.
I was saying to Dave before we came on that it was watching your calling show and Jason Hugh does a private Zoom for all the people in his chat that Elisa and I decided to do. And we've done 9 now, haven't we? Every other Saturday. We go live on a Saturday afternoon when it's morning for Elisa for 2 hours and we just open it up and any one of our followers can come on and talk to us like this. And it's been amazing.
Yeah, we've met some. I remembered. So when I went to therapy, which was kind of like a lifer there for a while, right? I probably put like 5 of his kids through school. But anyway, when I went, he said to me, which I thought was the funniest comment because I was going on and on about something. And he goes, there's all these keys on a piano, but you only play one. I'm like, what is that? He's like, anger. We've got to work on this.
Yep.
It is true what you said about breaking that generational. Like I never understood. Again, this is the kind of stuff you just, I don't know, you don't think about when you're really deep in the matrix, is the generational patterns that go on in the family. Like same thing. Like I have a Polish last name. My dad's side is Polish and Lithuanian, but my mom's side is Neapolitan and Sicilian, which is like, that's a whole nother story on its own when you put those 2 groups together. But yeah, my mom's side, my grandfather, God rest his soul, and my grandmother, Sicilian and Neapolitan, that kind of Italian, very firm, volatile, like you could say at time. I've heard enough stories from my mom to understand what went on over there. And then you could see, like, kind of when it got to my mom, she certainly carried a lot of those tendencies, but you could see, I used to watch her trying to break out of it because I would see the arguments she would have with her parents as an adult, when I was there watching. And then, I think as you go on, I think now when you get in and you start to learn about that more, then I know in particular in the last 5-6 years, I pay a lot more attention as to like what I'm doing, how I'm reacting, how I handle situations. And I say to myself, I'm like, wait, am I doing this the best way, or am I doing what no offense, like what my grandfather used to do.
Right.
Like, am I picking up on those tendencies? Like, how can I make sure I'm not reacting maybe the way he did that caused all these problems? Like, you start to be a lot more self-aware of those kind of things when you're trying to break out of it.
Oh my God, yeah. And listen, I've made lots of mistakes with my kids, but I think the key is to say, you know what? I'm really sorry. I fucked up. This is my baggage coming out. And you can then be taken more seriously when you're trying to give them advice, or you're trying because you've owned up to where your failings are, right? Which God rest, God bless them. A lot of our parents didn't do that. It was like, that's the way I do it. That's the highway. And if they had been a little more human, and I don't say that with disrespect, if they had that awareness, if they had that luxury of self-awareness and all that, it might have helped us bridge some of the difficult gaps that we went through, maybe saved us a little anxiety or bad relationships or, self-destructive behavior.
Yep, absolutely. I've gotten to that point with my mom. You'll meet her. She'll be at the event. She's
She's coming?
Yeah, she'll be there.
Hey.
And yeah, what I do, I use kind of the Q method. I've learned it, like where we'll still butt heads about things.
Yeah.
Where I see like she's doing, and I'll actually look at her. I'll say, "Mom, let me ask you a question." I'm like, "Do you remember when like I was a teenager, and you and Grandma, and they live right across the street from us, so that was like a whole nother show." Yeah. You remember that time you were like getting really mad at Grandma because she did this, this, and this, and she's like, and then you see her like, she goes, "Oh crap!" Like she realizes I just have to ask her that question, and then she realizes in her own way that that's what she's doing to me right now, and and I'm able to kind of make that connection without like yelling at her, being like, "You're wrong." I'll say, "Hey, Mom, you know how I'm reacting right now?" "Yeah." "Do you remember when this time when you and Grandma," and then she connects the dots like, "Oh, wait a second. I'm doing the same thing that I didn't like when my mom did it to me. And maybe there's a different way to approach it there." So, it's like everything else. I think all of it, I think we're all in agreement that everyone that's involved in this movement, like we've all learned a whole new way. I mean, Joe's seen it with me. We talk about things that I'm working on. I've seen it with him, friends of ours. But I think everyone is being forced to kind of learn psychology and learn how to handle other people a little bit different, how to kind of stop and say like, wait a minute, like, am I handling this right? Like it's part of the whole process, I think, of just opening your mind, where you tend to step back. I mean, I look at things that I used to do in business. It's funny because a lot of people, they meet us at events, and the one thing I always get from people like, "Oh, I appreciate how calm you are," and this and that. I'm like, if you had known me 10 years ago, like I was the dude in the office, like, 1 minute I'm happy, then another minute I get a call from an attorney and I'm throwing stuff around the office. Like I was a completely different person. I think it's part of this process of awakening and having, like you said, having things stripped away from you and being forced to look at what's important, that you kind of become a lot more grounded in the process.
I just have one question for you, Joe, because Dave, you don't have kids, right? Yet?
No.
Okay,
No.
but Joe, I know you have a son. And do you find that your son is much more enlightened than you are? Do you find that I find with my girls 19 and 22, I'll sometimes go off on a tangent or act, babyish, I guess, and they don't respond with babyish behavior. They literally are like, "Mom, are you okay? Maybe you want to think about this. Maybe you're having some pain." And I'm like, how did this kid come from me? Do you find that your son is like a little more enlightened in a lot of ways than you? And
I have two answers to that. So, unfortunately, and maybe this is my issue. But okay, so let me start here. My son hasn't had it easy.
Yeah.
Hasn't seen his mom since he was 2. Although there has been some conversation that's been restarted here recently. And once I was kind of tricked into giving up any power for my, control over custody of my son. It took over a decade to get him back.
Okay.
And that was literally a God moment. Like I had nothing to do with it, but my mom ended up kind of suffering consequences of the same way she treated me, right? The things I just talked about. there was another grandson in the house, and that boy went to school and told the teachers what was going on. She's been old school for a very long time, and she's apparently still old school. Now, full disclosure, she got out of it. She went to jail. She was charged. She went through the whole process, and they let her off. They did not let her paramour off. He got found guilty, but they let her off because corporal punishment is not illegal in Pennsylvania. So it all comes down to a jury deciding whether or not you crossed a line here or there. Right? It's very blurry, and so they convicted him and they let her go. Anyway, what I'm getting at is because of that process, I ended up with my son back. So it's now been, I guess we're just about 3 years that I've had my son.
Yeah.
So it's a much different dynamic than most would probably be used to. And I noticed like almost instantaneously when I got him back. Now it shouldn't be something anybody finds out of the ordinary that he was raised for 10 years by the same woman that raised me. So I see literally a carbon copy of myself, which scares the living crap out of me. At the same time, to answer your question, has he blown my mind a few times? Yeah, I just talked about one incident on the air the other day where, I'm working on him. I'm working on his grades with him. He's got mostly A's. He's got a B or two. He's got a C. And then he came home with a D, and I was not happy about that. Okay. And so we've been working on that since about midway through the year till now. And last week, maybe might have been the week before, we were talking about it, and he says to me, "Dad, this is becoming not about me learning. It's becoming about me just getting good grades."
Whoa.
And I was like, "What? You little shit." That makes way too much sense for a boy that turned 15 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
And I had to really drill down and find out, like, okay, are you not turning stuff in? Because if you're not turning stuff in, then your argument doesn't hold water, right? So we do the whole father-son thing. But he had a moment there where I was like, man, he's got more wisdom than I think he's picking up on more of what we're talking about than I realized.
That's great. Yeah. And I think that you have to remember the difference between his current and future upbringing versus yours is that you're so enlightened and you've been through that. And so your guidance is going to be on such a deeper level. So you should feel really confident that that you probably have so much more positive influence over him that maybe he was not going to go down a road you went down, but maybe your personalities are similar, so you could kind of come together on that and understand him better. Wow.
Well, I mean, if there's anything I'm grateful for, it's that I finally did get him back at this period of time in his life. If I had to lose him at all, which I wish I didn't.
Yeah.
But thank God I got him back because there is two completely different parenting techniques in what my mother did and what I did. My mom lied. I never smoked weed. I never did this. That's bad. The war on drugs method of talking about growing up, right? And I am the opposite. Everybody that watches my show knows I'm fully transparent. I'm completely honest. And I also am very honest about the consequences. Yeah. Not only that, but you're not going to get a thing past me. There is not a chance that boy is going to be able to pull something off I'm not aware of. Right. So I'm just grateful to be in the position I'm at, but that was a great question.
Yeah. Yeah. And here's to soul parents, because I'm a soul parent too for almost 11 years now, no contact with their dad. So yeah, it's not easy, but then we get to take the credit when they do great things.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. Well, bravo to you parents. Yeah. So, well, what should we talk about? Full control. Full control. We might as well start there because that pretty much encapsulates a lot of the stuff we've seen going on. There's partial control guys, full control guys. But if you watch your show and you get Matrix Codebreaker on and, Fox News comms, it's mathematically impossible, wouldn't you say?
I think so. I know a lot of people push back on that. But I think when you're in it every day and you look at, one of the things we try to do besides just comms and things like that on the boards is just looking at the way they deploy narratives and the way it carries through from a rumbling on social media out to a bigger conversation, then out to the mainstream. And I don't know, just the way I see it right now, I'm just watching the way everything comes together. I mean, you take something like what's going on in the last week, put the Iran stuff to the side for a minute. You have Eric Swalwell. Here's a guy that supposedly, was sleeping with a Chinese spy. He supposedly farted on the air on MSNBC. He's been the center and butt of every joke.
No pun intended.
Yeah, yeah. And now he gets rung up on rape allegations that were actually, in reality, happening at the exact same time that he was leading the charge against Brett Kavanaugh on all those trumped up false charges of rape when they were trying to stop that confirmation, right? So you have that happen. And then at the same time, just within 72 hours, 24 hours of that happening, we see the Hillary laptop come back into the news cycle. We see the Wiener laptop come back to the news cycle. Harvey Weinstein pops his head back out. He's back on trial. Like, these are all things happening at exactly the same time. And you say to yourself, well, is that a coincidence, or does that feed right into starting to lead people down the road of some of these truths, with Epstein still bubbling in the background? And then you have this, what I believe to be coordinated blackpilling campaign by the good guys to kind of lead people down to allow people to think that Trump's being led around by Netanyahu because of the Epstein files. So now you're showing people in real time what the actual effects of the Epstein operation can be on the world stage. And at the same time, you have all this stuff going on. So you just see how all this stuff, these waves, and Q literally tells you, think waves, right? So that's the way I look at it. Like, well, here comes another wave of Epstein and Congress and sexual assault and all these different things at the same time. So it's difficult to understand that if you're, I understand. That's why I don't, when people question it or they think we're crazy or whatever, it doesn't bother me, because it's the kind of thing you have to be watching this stuff literally day in and day out to identify these patterns. If you're just going to come on and watch a podcast and then go on about your life for 3 or 4 or 5 days or a week and then come back to it, you're not going to see the patterns that we do. But to me, like Elisa said before, I sleep well at night.
Yeah.
I have no concerns about what's going on right now.
Yeah, it's interesting you said that in real time, because a lot of us believe most of this has already happened, but we are now seeing the public rollout and declass and disclosure. And I believe people like Swalwell, etc., the lefties, the Democrats, the people with TDS, they are going to see their heroes drop one by one by one by one by one as this rollout continues.
Look, I'm going to piggyback with Dave.
Yeah. Go ahead, Joe.
No, finish. You finish first.
No, please finish. Go ahead.
I'll add to it. I'm a very stay out of the weeds type of dude, right? So I try to look at everything from that 40,000 foot view, and I hold Donald Trump's words with a lot of weight. And I've noticed that there's been tons of times here recently, especially in the last 6 months, where he talks about the weird anomaly that whenever a president wins, the presidency wins an election, that the midterms are always lost, right? He said that over and over and over now, right? Almost in a way where I feel like he's setting it up where, we're not going to lose this one, all right? And then we go through this period of time, right? It's similar to the Joe Biden administration, right? They shut down shipping. All the ships were sitting off of the coast of California. They were sitting off the coast of China. Nothing was moving. We speculated it was due to election or executive orders and election fraud. Nobody really figured it out. We had toilet paper wars. Gas prices went up. We all blamed Joe Biden, who we knew wasn't Joe Biden, right? Donald Trump told us throughout that presidency that, different things like, that we're sort of having a second term right now.
Yeah.
He's shot, right? It's not him. He's got like half his head. This is the pause. People
biggest mask I've ever seen.
Right. Biggest mask I've ever seen. All these crazy things that lead you to believe that there's something bigger going on than attached earlobes and fake inaugurations. And so I'm looking at the same thing now, and Donald Trump's hinting things like, they never win the midterms. And then we have this dark period of influencers, LOL emoji per Dan Scavino, right? And they're like setting up this narrative where MAGA, like I've said in the beginning, MAGA is being fractured. I didn't vote for this. Fuel prices are high. And at the same time, because I do believe that there's going to be it's only logical to understand that there's going to be some cause and effect when it comes to global restructuring, financial restructuring, right? So fuel prices went up. Well, is that full control? Or is that a consequence of some of the things that are going on globally, maybe in real time? Most likely not, right? But this is happening. It's almost like ripping the scab off. We're seeing the same thing happen again just prior to this midterm. And now all of a sudden we have Swalwell and all of these things. The Democrat Party is being dismantled. Pelosi's now involved. They all have blackmail on each other. Everything's absurd. And the stock markets shoot to the moon today.
Yeah, to that point about like we're seeing it, but we saw it already, right? Like we already saw it, so it's like the replay. But it's interesting because we, Stu and I, like every once in a while we get on and we start watching an old video or a documentary together, and you see with new eyes, right? Like, oh, I saw this 5 years ago, and you watch it again. And I have to tell you, and this is just my opinion, this war was fought in the 80s and the 90s. I mean, go back and watch some of these old documentaries that people were getting killed, people were missing, like that was when the battle was really happening with everything. And then if you go back to the early 80s in New York, right, what was Trump doing? He was working with, at the time, Giuliani and whoever the other law enforcement forces that be, taking down the New York mob. They were infiltrating them, right, with the concrete business and all this stuff. So I think that so much of the warriors, the real warriors who really paid the price, that was going on in the 80s and 90s. Now, I'm not saying that there's not still warriors today, like by any means, because I think the war's a little different. It's the kids, it's the tunnels, it's, but I can't conceive that everything is not done. For the most part. I mean, you still got minions, you still got the lower level stuff and the locals and all that crap. But I mean, the financial system, I think it's just like, I mean, look, I have an assistant in the Philippines. Go back 2.5 years. I would pay her, right? 3 days, 5 days, whatever it was, Now it's like your money has been delivered, like how is that happening, right? So it's all this kind of stuff that I think is in place, and we're analyzing to look at, because now they're showing us a little bit more, or the rest of the people who didn't choose to look, what is going on. And I will tell you something else with this Trump stuff. Obviously, Dave and I, we grew up in New York. Trump was like a little bit of a local hero. He fixed Woman Rink. He did all this stuff. We heard how he was on the Long Island Expressway and, somebody came over and helped. Like we heard these things as New Yorkers and Queens and Long Island people. But my parents belonged to a golf club in the early 2000s. They've always belonged to it. But in the early 2000s, they were very good friends with the gentleman who was on The Apprentice with Trump, right? His lawyer. And he would refer very lovingly to Trump as the kid. The kid did this, the kid's doing that, the kid's doing this, because he's a little older gentleman. And he was talking about the whole running for president a long time ago, like early 2000s. So what's that mean? That means that this escalator thing was just the public, right? A lot of this stuff was already done. And I say that because it gives me great comfort to know that we're trying to look and take the signs and see what's happening to kind of validate what we feel has already been implemented. And even with all that you were saying, Joe, about, the shortages and this and that, well, yes, it was serving a purpose to make Joe Biden look like a bad guy and a buffoon. But at the same time, what was going on? Were they cleaning up the food supply? Were they getting rid of all the toxins that were on like there was a shortage on feminine products, right? Then you find out, oh, there's all these toxins that are giving people, cervical cancer and this and that. So I just think this 5D chess was being played on so many levels that they were cleaning stuff up, they were saving kids, and then there's this other layer that was being played. I mean, that's just like the way I look at it, that when I hear the specifics and like you said, the weeds, it's hard to, like, you don't want to get caught up in the weeds anymore because you kind of see that big picture all the time with whatever is going on.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think one of the reasons that people, I'm with Joe, and that's the way we run both of our shows, is we really try to stay at that 40,000 foot view. But then, like, I think where it does get, I don't want to say it can get frustrating at times, and it's not with the normies, right? Because I see I'm on the opposite side. Like, we have, I'm sure you guys get this. Like, we have a lot of people that either reach out to us or they call in on the call-in show or they're in Joe's chat or whatever, and they're like, well, I don't understand. Like, the normies are getting mad at Trump right now. I'm like, well, that's the script. They're supposed to get mad at him right now. Stop getting obsessed with what they do. Whatever is on the television is what they're supposed to believe. But when people who have been watching this stuff and claim to be awake, and you don't have to be a full control person. I'm not saying I don't need you to agree with me. I don't want anyone to agree with me. I want everyone to reach their own decisions. I mean, Joe and I are the same way. Like that, you want to get me upset? Go in somebody else's chat and be like, Dave from Newstreason and Joe said this is going to happen. Right. No, don't go tell people what we're saying. That we're not claiming to be intel people. Like, we're giving you our opinions, right? But I think everything needs to be a thought exercise, and it's like we do have people even within the truth movement that portray themselves as being awake, and then it's like an event happens and they just move on to the next event emotionally, and I'm like, well, wait a second, like, you know what? Forget Iran for a minute. Let's go back 3 months and let's look at a place called Venezuela. Right now, I do this to people all the time, and they can't answer the question. I go, can you name another time in the last 126 years, let's go back to 1900, where somebody has gone in and either killed a leader, overthrown a leader, pulled a color revolution in a third world country, and then there has not been 1 ounce of chaos, right? We went in and we're told that Maduro just got plucked out of this country, where the Venezuelan bolivar is worth absolutely nothing. It's had record inflation over the last 30 years. People literally can't get food. They can't get bread. They can't get water. That is a tinderbox waiting to happen. That is the kind of place throughout history where if you pluck a leader out, there's going to be factions all over the place fighting, and there's going to be none of that happened. So how do you guys explain that, right? Yeah. And the only logical answer is that there was a lot of stuff done leading up. Now, whether or not it was done in the past and it was being presented to us now, whatever it may be, but there was something done, and I'm going to guess it was special forces and deal making and negotiations and things that probably went on sometime between, when Trump came in 2017 and maybe during the pause, and then they set this up and they said, okay, now we can present this. We'll present that we arrested Maduro, but people need to go back and you know what? If you want to get emotional about Iran right now, put that to the side for a minute. Like, go do some research into Venezuela and see what's going on there. And there's record oil flows, and we have all the docks back up and running, and it's functioning very well. And that is exactly the opposite of what we've seen our entire lives when you have a regime change. So, if you want to sit there and say where people are crazy when they say this happened in the past, or it was pre-negotiated, or it was part of the plan, like, somebody's got to explain to me how that's possible.
Yeah.
Because we've never seen it before.
Yeah, exactly. I'll tell you what made me laugh this week. And I know we always say to people, don't jump on clickbait, 48 to 72 hour rule, bare minimum. We've seen this talking Iran, Strait of Hormuz stuff going on this week. All of a sudden, you've got super tankers turning around in the South Atlantic and the Indian Ocean. They're all heading up to the newly named Gulf of America to fill up on oil there. Puts it into new perspective, doesn't it? What Trump started saying about 10 years ago, we're going to drill, baby, drill.
Yep.
You know what's funny? I've actually made a, you know, for lack of a, I'm just using it as a saying, right? This is not about a money thing, but I've literally made a living out of calling things fake before that 24 hours is over. Like Donald Trump got shot in the air. Yeah, no, he didn't. no, he didn't. And everybody got mad at me.
Oh my God. My aunt went berserk. She's like, I just saw it. I said, I didn't say you didn't see it. I didn't say it's not what they're showing you. What I'm saying is he didn't really get hit. And she wouldn't talk to me for like 2 months. I'm you tinfoil wearing hat. And I was like, okay, bye. People were pissed.
Yep. Yeah, I made a couple enemies on that.
Well, don't worry about that. That Butler rally, I mean, Trump, he was pulling 50, 60, 70,000 plus people to his rallies. That Butler rally only had 10,000 people there, didn't it? If the secret army has got 60,000 people in it, you only need a little percentage of them there on that day. Comparatory, where's the missing letter out of his name?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
you know what I tried to explain to people is this, you don't even know the technology that exists, okay? That they could wipe out a person from, you know, some satellite. I don't even know how all that stuff works. All I know is that they put this guy, Trump, in a situation. Do you know the security? You don't even know if he's really with the crowd per se, we don't know all that. And this guy he came in and he climbed through, like, how do you even believe that from a common sense standpoint? Like, that's what just drives me so crazy. They don't use common sense. And I guess that's what the white hats know. If we present this on the mainstream, they're going to just lap it up because nobody's thinking, well, let me give that a little thought. That doesn't make sense, right?
I was at a conference in about a year ago, and I was seated next to a woman who was there. She was in Butler.
Okay.
And she was going off about it. Now, I'm not going to sit there and tell her what I believe, but, you know, I've had people ask me that. They're like, well, how do you explain that? Like, I know someone who was there. And I'm like, well, you have to understand something. And this is to your point, Elisa, where the white hats, they understand. Like, if I understand what I'm about to say, they understand the psychology 1,700% more than I do. Like, if you're in a situation where you're sitting there and you hear what you believe to be gunshots, right? Your brain is not trained to go, are those really gunshots or are they not? You're going to say gunshots. And the second you hear gunshots, you go into fight or flight mode. And the second you do that, emotion takes over. So if there's somebody sitting, they're like, well, I saw the blood. Sure. If there's a guy sitting there 10 feet away and there's a blood squib that goes off, again, you're going to hear gunshots, blood, that person got shot.
Yeah.
So, you know, it doesn't have to all, to Stu's point, there were clearly some people in there, like, you know, you got Vincent Fusca standing there, of course, at center stage. Like, you know, there was a lot of oddities. There were certainly people that didn't react. But I've been asked that many times, like, I don't understand. Like, I know someone was there. They saw it. Sure, they saw what they thought to be. Like, right now, if Joe and I were to go out to the mall right now today, and they were to pull the same thing on us, we would both think somebody got shot. That's the way the mind goes. You hear gunshots, you see an explosion of blood. It's not that hard to do. Same thing with the Charlie Kirk situation. Again, I know not everyone agrees with us on that either. Something weird happened there. And they say, well, how could it have been something different? Same thing. There was a bunch of blood. There was people standing there. They heard shots. That's all you have to do.
Wait a second. Wait. Think about this, okay? Consider this. Every Halloween, millions of people buy a ticket to walk through a haunted house that they know is literally just for fun. And the whole way through, they scream with real terror, real fear. And some of them walk out with PTSD. And they signed up for it, right? Yeah. They literally went into something knowing it was not real and believed it in the middle when somebody jumped out with a chainsaw and no chain on it. Because, oh my gosh, it was so shocking. It blew my mind. It looked so real. I believed it in the moment. I mean, consider that. Yeah. And so when you don't even realize that what you're about to see is theater in that way, it will traumatize you even to another level where you will believe it 100%.
Yeah.
And they've been doing this to us for generations. The version we're getting now is a deprogramming, an awakening, a consciousness of what they've been doing so that we become aware. I mean, this moon landing thing was so fugazi that I don't know how anybody, I mean, we laughed so hard yesterday watching that press conference.
Yeah.
It was one of the funniest moments I've had with my friends in a long time. I couldn't get through 30 seconds without falling out of my chair laughing.
But Joe, to your point, I had calls like, "Oh my God, I remember the first one. It's so nice that the generation today can see, this again." And what do you say? I'm just like, that's lovely because
Right. That's what you say. That's lovely. That's about it.
no, right, yeah, kumbaya, because they're not using critical thinking.
I mean, why don't you do it on April Fool's Day just for a laugh?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Really, but just what you were saying, Dave. I watched your episode you did with all the blood packages on talking about Charlie Kirk. That was very interesting. I'll put loads of people onto that. But just don't forget, Trump rallies, potentially when we were seeing the real Trump most of the time, he always used to do his rallies in the middle of airfields, didn't he? Because you had a mile and a half, 2 mile, snipers everywhere around him. So to then bring it into such enclosed spaces.
Dude,
that's a really good point.
Red line perimeter on Butler was Pac-Man.
Yeah.
It literally just didn't look like that.
You guys ever see that picture? It's
they cut that bit out.
They cut out. It's a Pac-Man. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they tell you in so many different ways. But you know what I think to your what I always try to remind the audience. And by the way, I typically when I say something, it's not me preaching. I know it may come across that way. It's me explaining something that I personally went through on this journey. So I went through a long period of time where I would get frustrated when they would run an op, and I'm like, well, these people over here that I know, they're not seeing it. And I would get mad at it. And so with something like the space thing, like if we see this in our chat all the time, and I love our audience. We have amazing people, but there's always somebody like, well, my coworkers, they're not seeing any of this. I'm like, okay, not yet. Right. Don't let yourself don't set expectations. Like I know it's not easy for people, but don't set expectations of, well, I have these 3 people in my life and I'm dying for them to see what I see. I understand that. We all have that. But what I think we've all learned through this process is it's not I'm going to run an operation and on that day, everyone's going to see it. No, what they're doing is it's like an ice sculpture. Like they're chipping away a little bit off the block at a time. So yeah, we all have people around us that still love the NASA thing and they watched it and whatever. But you can't ignore the fact that I was playing around with Grok and ChatGPT and the billions of impressions that there was on social media of people looking at the stuff and dissecting it. That's what you have to pay attention to. Like it would be like being in a stadium, right? You ever get to a game really early and you're like, there's nobody here. Oh my God, no one's showing up. Right. And it's like, if you stare at that one section, you might think there's nobody there. And while you're staring at that one section, the whole rest of the stadium is filled up and you think there's nobody there. So it's an ongoing rinse and repeat. And every time they do something, it's like, there's more people that are hopping on the train. There's more people that are getting on the train. And to me, I still have plenty of people that I'm frustrated with, and I wish they were kind of on this journey with me. But the way I get up every day or every week to do this, and Joe knows this as well as anybody, we all get frustrated with it. But if I'm metaphorically looking at this thing and say the train is moving forward, and I can still look every week and see new people getting on board that train, then I'm okay with it.
I'll say that all the time. Everything that happens just brings a few more people across, just a few and a few and a few more. It's going to get to the stage where the hammer goes down and maybe there's 4 to 6% left that you've got no chance with. But every day, something else happens. Someone else goes, that idiot in the tinfoil hat said that to me 2 years ago.
Right. And I tell this story all the time. I learned a lot from my good friend Captain Kyle over the years. You know, he's an OG truther, and he was one of those people like 5 years ago saying, you know, one day people are going to come to you and they're gonna need your help or they're gonna ask your advice. And I used to get so mad at that because anyone that watches our shows knows that that has happened. I've had people that shunned me back in Hoboken reach out to me. Joe saw the video. I sent him a video. A friend of mine just a couple Saturdays ago, he was out at the bar in New York City with like 3 of my friends, and he's sending me a video at 12 in the morning. Like, dude, what's actually going on with this? I know the news is, but it's happening, and we get it on call-in shows. We have people that, you know, people are coming around. And the last thing I would say is I have a belief that there are way more people awake.
Yeah.
They're not like they're waiting to be sitting next to somebody. It just happened to me last night. I went to grab dinner. There was a woman sitting next to me. She's like a local real estate agent down here. And she was asking me something about my real estate past. And she's like, well, what are you doing now? And I get into podcasting. What do you podcast about? I'm like, and this woman was, again, not to stereotype people. She was a very, very wealthy Connecticut, almost kind of seemed like blue bloodish real estate developer. I'm like, oh, she ain't on our team. Like, no way, you know? And so she asked, and I said, well, it's kind of like conspiracy theories. And she started laughing, and she goes, well, that's a great business to be in because they're all coming true now, aren't they?
Wow.
Right. But that woman, if it wasn't me there, she wouldn't be sitting, whoever else was sitting next to her, she wouldn't be talking about conspiracy theories because I think we're all programmed to think that no one else around us thinks this way.
Well, everybody's afraid of ridicule. Like even during the mask days, right? How many times would you be somewhere and you didn't wear one and you could see it in their eyes. Like, I don't really want to be wearing this. Well, all right, she's not wearing one. Well, you know, like people are afraid to kind of be the trailblazers. So, you know, that's unfortunate. We have like a herd mentality, and I guess it helps in some instances, right? When it needs to, when we come together and we all think the same, but not, you know, when you're trying to take down, you know, a whole worldwide system of satanic pedophiles, you kind of need to use a little critical thinking, you know?
Yeah. I'll read a quick quote from Mark Twain. In the beginning of a change, the patriot is a scarce man, and brave and hated and scorned. When his cause succeeds, the timid join him, for then it costs nothing to be a patriot.
Yep.
I actually have one that's going on right now. I didn't even tell Dave about this yet. I re-entered the battlefield that is Facebook a few months back. Yeah.
God bless you, brother.
I know.
I've just been kicked out of my 8th account. Right, yeah. So my mate set up another, because that's where all the normies are. That's where all my friends are. My mate set up another one for me using a different email address. It went live, and they banned me for 180 days.
Well, I don't know. You know, at any day, I think they're going to kick us off because we talk about a lot of stuff on our show, yeah. And I'm airing it over there now. So, but I'll tell you, you know, like I've had a few close friends. The one most recent. My buddy, we'll just call him Jimmy, made a post about, you know, he lost his mind. This isn't what I voted for, blah, blah, blah. And I threw in the comments like, hey, bro, love you, miss you. It's been a while. Maybe we should talk. I think some things are going on that you might not be aware of or whatever. And then he messages me the other day. I have to check on this. I stink. I got a million messages, but I got to check because I want to hear what he said. As of recently, because he then messaged me after and he said, I watched 2 or 3 of your podcasts and I think you're a little bit further along than I am. And I find it interesting and I'd like to talk to you one-on-one to try to catch up. And I was like, boom. Right. So I have to actually, thank you for reminding me because I'm going to go check and see where we're at with that conversation. But yeah, I mean, you go to Facebook, like if you go back to Facebook, I had 1,000 or 2 friends on there from like my growing up years. And now I'm streaming my podcast. has gotten a lot of like bad reaction and it's got a lot of really good reaction.
Yeah.
but yeah, those moments, those interactions are definitely happening. That's for sure.
Yeah, that silent majority out there is massive, and but they will come across piece by piece.
Elisa, you'd appreciate this story. It was last, I want to say it was last Thanksgiving, and I was at the JetBlue terminal at JFK.
Okay.
And I was waiting for my flight, and it was like, I don't know, noon. So I'm like, what better time for a Bloody Mary than now? And it's a tradition before a flight. Who am I kidding? I would do that at 6 a.m. too. It's just a tradition. And there's a bar, and there's about 20 seats. It's a big circle. And I sit down, I get my drink, and it's full. You know, it's holiday time. And again, you're sitting there, you're in New York, and we have these preconceived notions of New York is different than Florida, whatever. And I don't even know how it started. It was somebody maybe sitting a couple of seats down from me said something about COVID. And then the guy next to me goes, a freaking hoax. They really got us with that one, right? And I watched like a domino effect as every single person all the way. I just sat there and watched. I didn't say a word. Every other person, all 20 people at the bar in the middle of New York, started exchanging war stories about the BS of COVID and the BS of the masks and the BS of the lockdowns and the BS of the vax. This is in New York on Thanksgiving. So it's like another example of, I would have otherwise sat there and been like, oh, these people probably all hate me or what, you know, you kind of get into that mindset and then you watch it happen. It's just somebody's waiting for one person to make it a safe space. Again, I hate using that term, but it is the psychology. It's like, and everyone looks up and then they go, okay, I'm not going to get yelled at. And now we can all have this conversation. So that's why I don't have a great way to gauge it, other than I really do believe that part of the reason so many people in our communities struggle is because they think that it's still 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's not.
It's not. And we have to remember, like in the 2020 election, people, I believe, they really got traumatized here in New York. Because if you put out a Trump sign, oh my God, you were literally putting yourself in physical danger because people were so nuts, you know, harassing little old men because they had, you know, a Trump hat on, and like people got scared. Like, you know what, I'm going to keep it to myself because I don't need to get punched in the face or have my car, you know, keyed. But you're right. There's been a mass awareness, let me say awakening awareness of a lot of the hoaxes that have been, but people don't want to be trailblazers, you know, because in New York, I mean, it was rough here. It was rough. I don't know how far, you know, when you were here, Dave, but you remember the vitriol. I mean,
can I say something to this?
Yeah.
In those last drops that we got in 22, highly debated on their legitimacy. I tend to believe that they're legit. It talked about ascension, all right? And if we believe, as I know I do, that we're a bit ahead of the curve on this stuff when it comes to psyops and what's going on, then we're also going to be a bit ahead of the curve when it comes to the final stages of this thing. And that's what I want to talk about just real quick. I just read a comment that said, so who's on whose side? You know, I think that we were lulled to sleep because of a level of infiltration, a level of, you know, they were trying to take this country over without, you know, ever firing a weapon, right? We've all heard these sayings. Well, what's gone on here recently is we've been made to understand that we are at war. Right. This has turned into a political war in this country at this point. Right. This is what you're talking about with wearing a MAGA hat and confrontation, et cetera, et cetera. I believe we're headed back to the point where we're no longer going to have to fight about whose side somebody's on. It's going to go back to the Democratic Republic this place was always meant to be, that works together. If there's honest elections, and if we're to vote on things and get honest conclusions, resolutions, if we're to work together, then the war aspect of politics kind of goes out the window, because the extremes are not nearly what we're being led to believe they are at this point. That silent majority in the middle is capable, in my opinion, of having these conversations. I think we prove it almost every day on our shows. I'm willing to talk to anybody, no matter how extreme one way or the other you are, because I believe that I can bring somebody back to having an honest, sane conversation in the middle. However, nobody was ever going to realize we were at war unless it got made to look like we were at war.
Yeah.
And so extremes got spotlighted and highlighted, and we've all gone through it. I think COVID was the gun that set everybody off on the races to finding all of that out. And we're getting closer and closer to being able to have real conversations. Hence the story I just told you with my buddy Jimmy, or the thing Dave's talking to you about. It doesn't have to be extreme where we're throwing Mazel Tov cocktails at political leaders' homes. That's just insanity. That's insanity. Nobody I know would do that. Right.
I also think in the past it's been one party against the other. So it forced it. I don't say forced, but it was that divide and conquer. Now we're seeing they're all corrupt. If you're in that position, somehow or another, you're compromised. And when you see Bush being put in the same highlight as Clinton, right, and Obama, you're not saying Democrat, Republican. You're seeing politician, power, corruption. And that's going to make people say, I don't even want to be affiliated. I just want honesty and fair elections and medical, freedom. So you're right. I think people are going to start to come together because that those divisions, even male, female, gay, straight, like they set all these things up. But if we're all united against evil and bad, then there is no reason to have extremes anymore.
Well, they made politics so boring that none of us paid attention, and that was the point of it. And now we're all paying attention to it. And what you were saying about hats there, it's different for me in the UK, especially with the Trump thing. But I'm always going out. Let's go Brandon on there, or wear a Trump hat down the supermarket. I might get 80% of the people look at me, thinking like that, but I get 2 or 3 people coming up and approaching me, especially if you've got T-shirts on like that. Yeah, you've got to do it, because you give people the courage. None of us were wearing masks in the supermarket when we went out in COVID, and occasionally someone would pull their mask down off their face, and then someone else, little by little.
Yep.
Yeah, or they saw you getting kind of thrown out of a place, and maybe that said, gee, I wish I could do that. Maybe I'll do that next time. Or there are people who realize this is BS.
I mean, we all had get out of clauses anyway, because I phoned my doctor up to get a doctor's note. The doctor said you don't need a note for not wearing a mask. It's a personal decision. They put me, and I found the bit on the website, and it gave me all the stuff. I had it saved on my phone that said, you can wear a badge, a homemade sign or something like that, but this is not a legal requirement by law. And all you had to do was say, I'm exempt. And people just left you alone.
Not New York.
Well, and the ones that drive around in their car by themselves with masks on are the reason we're allowed to say retarded again. So
yeah. Yeah, it's like what's that meme? Wearing a seatbelt when you're just walking around the park, or wearing a condom when you're sleeping by yourself. Like, there's so many of them.
Now, let me just say something quickly, because you play all these clips all the time. The "Why are you gay" clip. Have you seen the new one?
No, let me see.
Have you seen he's done a new one?
That guy? I've seen him in a bunch of stuff. That's the funniest one I've seen so far.
Watch this one.
Why are you gay? No, you can't deny. You are gay. And you got gay friends who are telling everyone how you became the gayest of all of them. Shame.
Oh, that's amazing. I have not seen that. That's amazing.
I haven't seen you play it yet. I thought it's classic.
That is amazing.
That's funny.
We had a couple of questions, I think, in the chat. They were, directed at you guys. Trying to find one of them. I think they were. Let's see.
Yeah, Mike, I've really been paying attention to the chat. I've been listening intently.
Yes. I think they wanted to know, let's see, they were asking your guys' opinion. Again, it's all opinion. We're not like sitting here with like, crystal balls or whatever. But it caught my eye now. I can't find it. So we could just go on. If I find it, I'll bring it up again.
Well, I mean, I normally start with them as I go through, but like I say, I haven't really been looking at it. Let me just put one thing to you. We were talking to BB Maguire about this July the 4th date and how it was potentially, a lot of people discuss it as it's all going to be done by then. And, we don't think so. And Elisa was saying, well, maybe what if that is the start? Anyway, I went to bed and I kept thinking 120 days, 120 days. Now, whether you think Nasara, Jassara, Trump-Sara, as I like to call it, and we've been seeing softballs of this rolling out all the time over the last few years, is a real thing. There's one of the stipulations of those 20 points. He said, when Nasara is announced publicly, new elections will be called within 120-day period. And I was thinking 120 days. Anyway, I came out July the 4th to November the 3rd, days between dates, midterms, is exactly 120 days. So we were spitballing. Do you think there's going to be some sort of big announcement like this on July the 4th? And then we've got a sort of 4-month period, disclosure, declass, maybe EBS and stuff. And then the midterms will be the freest and fairest elections we've ever seen in this country because everyone will be awake and aware.
People aren't going to like my answer. I don't. Now, understand when I say this, I'm speaking based on what I'm seeing right now, right? Now, something could happen in a week or so from now that completely changes the trajectory of what's going on.
Yeah.
What has been beaten into me, and again, when I say this, I'm coming from a perspective of at one point believing that there was going to be a rip the Band-Aid moment or there was going to be mass disclosure. Like, what have we seen? There's not been one moment in this entire last 10 years where somebody of any authority stands up and says, let me tell you what's going on. That's not how it's gone. What did they do with the Epstein stuff? They caused all this chaos for a year. They caused controversy. They seeded it. Then they released it. And they just left us to our devices to figure out what's in there and argue about it. And I can give you a million examples of how they've done that, right? They've left it up to us to educate ourselves about whatever the topic du jour is, right? Right now, what are you seeing? You're starting to see people like General Flynn and Marjorie Taylor Greene. You have Marjorie Taylor Greene out there in tax season putting out tax truths with Joe Bannister and Peyton from the Freedom Law School, right? Now, do people really believe Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's an original, she was doing Q videos back in 2017. Are we supposed to believe she just figured out now that the IRS is illegal? It's coordinated messaging. So to me, the way they've done it is like they take a narrative, they cause some controversy, they put it out there, and then they feed it, and they let us all dissect it. That's exactly what you just saw with Artemis, right? Artemis is what I love about it. It's not a flat earth, round earth conversation. That's not what they did. They just put something out there and they left enough holes in it that got people to question, and they're kind of educating themselves. And as they're doing that and they're seeing that's being faked, they're stumbling across videos, learning how much money is being wasted by NASA, right? The fraud stuff, we're in the process of that. We've only done Minneapolis and California. So to me, the process of this whole thing is the reason I don't believe you can do like an EBS type of mass disclosure is because that doesn't teach people how the stuff was done to you, right? Yeah. You look at Epstein, I would have expected 5 years ago that at some point somebody was going to stand up and they were going to arrest Epstein, arrest this guy, and then explain, here's what he did. He had this island and these cameras, but that's not what they're doing. They're actually showing people what can happen around the world. Like, hey, look at all these guys like Peter Mendelsohn. They were selling state secrets. Hey, the former prime minister of Norway got arrested. Hey, he was involved with, guys from JP Morgan in the 2008 financial crisis. Hey, he might be pulling Trump strings. He's not. Just, Israel is pulling Trump strings to start a war. So they're showing people like how deep all this stuff is.
Yeah.
And so I'm of the mindset that that's the pattern we're going to be in. Like, and I look, I know a lot of people have July 4th on their calendar. The way they've been doing this, the way they've been putting stuff out there and allowing the people to argue about it, to discuss it, to digest it, to recycle it, I think this is going to play out for some time. That's my opinion. I don't see a pull the Band-Aid off type of moment, at least not anytime soon. I know a lot, it'll disappoint a lot of people, but that's just kind of where my head's at right now.
Yeah, but Dave, isn't it also what your level is? Like, in other words, they're using the same Socratic method as Q that they used with Q, but they're doing it, in a different way, right? Like, we have a guy that my cousin, we do a show with every week, Red Pilling Renee. He was awakened by the Epstein files, like struggling, like broken about it. But when we talk about like announcement, let's say, what does that mean? That can mean so many things. And
Sure.
And it can mean something that we pick up as an announcement, and that sets the motion for some of these changes that we're supposed to see, or lets us know, you know what, a lot of this shit's been done. We're going to have free elections, blah, blah, blah. So it means, what does announcement mean? And the other thing, to your point, I totally agree with the tax. Like, I'm in a business community here, networking groups, accountants, lawyers, financial advisors, so asleep, okay? So asleep about everything. They've never heard of half the stuff we talk about, right? Sure. I don't think they want to come along like Big Daddy and go, hey guys, no more income taxes. We're so happy, yay. They want people to say, wait a minute, again, Socratic method. Let me check out this guy payment. Because I talk to accountants, they're like, you don't know what you're talking about. The IRS is still, go ahead. You want to go to jail? I'm like,
well, think about that.
Go to jail. I got a lot of people I'm going to be hanging with.
The IRS is a perfect example. Think about that for a minute. We could go through a whole host of stuff that we need to get to, right? We have to finish explaining to people that Epstein wasn't just about kids. It was about world control, right? That the normies haven't gotten to that point yet. The Federal Reserve, normies haven't gotten on board with that. The IRS, there's a whole bunch of stuff, right? Elections haven't gotten to that yet. And again, elections is not just it was rigged against Trump. It was foreign interference. It was years of election rigging. You need people to understand that even your Supreme Court, Trump gave you that little clue. There's foreign influence. Like, there's a lot of stuff we have to get. And again, it's not 100% of people, but we have to get a critical mass. So IRS, perfect example. Let's say Trump stands up tomorrow. You want to make Trump's approval rating 95%? Let him stand up tomorrow and say, from now on forward, no one has to pay income taxes. Now, on the surface, there's a lot of people that would say, that's a great idea. All my Democrat friends will come along. Sure, they probably will. And what's going to happen? Every business is going to be 30, 40% richer. So now they're going to spend the next 6 months to a year figuring out, hey, how do I redeploy that capital? How do I invest? I'm going to open another store. And every person's going to go, I'm going to go take a vacation. I'm going to buy a motorcycle. Everyone will stop paying attention to everything else that's happening in the world.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. And I can give you a bunch of examples like that. So that's why, as much as it would be great, we'd love it, and it would be a big feather in our cap, we could be like, see, I told you so. But you can understand why you could pick any one of these subjects and say, if you just drop news, if you just dropped even one heavy set of videos from Epstein Island, like, that's it. That's going to dominate the news cycle for weeks or months, and no one's going to pay attention to anything else that's going on in the world.
But I mean, that is absolutely perfect for the phone call you had in from Bria, which is one of the best 20 minutes.
Oh, loved it.
It was amazing. I've shared that everywhere, especially when you put the Q drops in it. And everyone has got to feel the pain. Everyone has got to feel like they've been lied to, as you said, having their heart broken at some stage in this awakening. And because otherwise, 17 years down the road, we'll be in exactly the same place again.
Yep.
Yeah. It doesn't empower people to just give them something. Unfortunately, they have to. It's like your children. You just keep giving. They don't learn how to be self-sufficient. We're all children. I don't know about us necessarily, but we're all children. It's how we got in this position.
Exactly right.
I want to ask you guys a question. So, like Mickey's one of them. There's a bunch of people that are like, July 4th, right? 250 years. There's going to be something big that happens. It's going to be the end. I want to ask what's the end? What does the end look like to someone? Because here, let me go further before you answer the question. The drops told us that the choice to know will be ours. Yes, the drops talked about an EBS. Has everybody been watching over the last month and a half? We've had flashes of green on the screen. We've ended with EBS flashes. Look, do I hope that we get some sort of formal EBS where it runs for 72 hours and they tell us all the crimes of the world? Sure, I do. Of course. But what if we're in that period of time, right? Green means go. They showed us these EBS flashes. They're declassing all of this stuff in front of us. The choice to know will be yours. So you guys are talking about more and more people are getting on that train. Well, it could never, in my opinion, I could be wrong. Hopefully I'm wrong. It could never just flash on the screen and everybody agrees.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen, right? That would cause mass chaos.
Right.
So the choice to know will be yours. And they keep flashing these EBS things in Donald Trump's speeches and at the end of this and that. I feel like we're potentially in that period of EBS time. This is that 72 hours of D class that's going on. We're literally living through it. And the choice to know will be yours. Sure. I'm going to say it one more time. I hope there's some big conclusion. But PSYOPs are never going away, in my opinion. They're used to not only to give messages to the public, as we've seen here recently, but they're also used to protect us. Mm-hmm. Look, if we stopped, then that would mean China would have to be like, okay, truce. That means Russia would have to be like, okay, truce. Look, sure. Do I think that Donald Trump's working with China, Russia, and others to take down the New World Order? Yes. Do I think that China has our best interest in mind 100% of the time? Absolutely not. They have China's best interest in mind. Just like we're make America great again. Put America first, right? We want to be the world power. We're going to stay that way without question. Donald Trump has proven that to me. Russia, China also have their interests in being world powers. That doesn't mean that we can't align on getting rid of something. And so I just think that PSYOPs, as they stand, 5th generation, 6th generation, I don't know how many people have looked into 7th and 8th generation warfare, but this only gets more and more colluded as we go on, right? Hopefully we can become aware enough that we understand the process and we can have free and fair elections and get back to what our forefathers intended for this country rather than the infiltration and corruption that we've been given for generations.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think we've been living through an EBS moment and D-class for years.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's only the people that are paying attention to see it. I mean, the movie is for the normies, but they haven't even bought a ticket and got their popcorn yet.
Yeah.
Have they? And I do, what you're saying about what do you think the end is, I think the end will potentially be the start, because these red pill moments will escalate, I believe, drip, drip, drip into some sort of flood. And then there will be a time when the majority of people are aware what's been going on. But then that surely is just the start, isn't it? Because that's when we have to start rebuilding everything. That's when humanity has got to change. That's when humanity's got to take, and I don't know whether we're going to have some sort of reverse rapture moment and all the criminals are going to be whisked away, but society has to change worldwide to move into the golden age. You can't just go, there's money, everyone, there's your golden age, because it won't work.
That's right.
It'll be even worse.
Yeah.
It's got to be a change of everyone's heart and soul and how we live.
And think about the, what Joe and I both noticed with all this Artemis stuff is all these videos that are being made where people are asking questions. They're like, hey, why can't we see this? And, this looks like CGI and all the other things. They weren't Anons, and most of them weren't even flat earthers. They were just normal people. They were going, wait a second. And now you think about it, what are they going to do next? Mm-hmm. They're going to start digging into other things. Right. And it's this constant process, like I said, of bringing people on board that metaphorical truth train that we're talking about, and now they're going to go. And so I don't know. I have no idea what the end game looks like, or how, we escalate this to the notion of, look, we know there's 600 and now it's 641,000 sealed indictments in the United States, with only, I think, 80,000 of them unsealed. Like, we know they're there. How do we get to that point? What type of events are going to escalate things? I don't know. I believe that, look, first of all, I believe things have been escalating and they will continue to escalate. So I don't know what it looks like, but yeah, I think going back to the original question, and I will be happy to be proven wrong. I think, respectfully to a lot of people out there, the people that are making the argument, well, something has to be done by 4th of July. It's it's the quince and whatever tenant. Like, I think there's people that are setting themselves up for disappointment. That's just me. I've seen it too many times. I've fallen victim to it too many times. It's not a one-day celebration. It's a year-long celebration. So we have a lot of runway to do things over the next year.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with what everyone's saying. I mean, yes, I think emotionally and vindication wise, I would love an EBS because, we've all date fagged. I remember telling everyone with such certainty, Biden will never be inaugurated. Just wait. You're going to see. And, of course, right, that lost all credibility with so many people at that point, and so many others that I was like, no, by this date. So we don't do that anymore. And I think that what if we're in the flood? We don't even know, like, what does a flood look like? I mean, every time you turn around, something's coming out, something's on the news, right? They're telling us all this stuff. So I think what it is it's all a process. We've learned that all these things we thought that we're going to, like, cops were going to come in the middle of the inauguration and arrest everyone. Like, all these things we thought were going to be drama. But if we go back to what Bria said, there still may be some, climatic event in this movie that we all, and I think even as, like, Q people and Awakened, let's face it, at least I can speak for myself. As much as I like to think, like, yeah, I knew that. Yeah, occasionally something happens. I'm like, oh, wow, that's really cool how they did that. I wouldn't have thought they were going to, like, I might not be tricked or, like, not, but I wouldn't have thought that that's how they were going to do it. So it even, like, we get surprised sometimes, like, wow, we were a little psyop there. But I think with this whole thing, you got to remember too, we're looking at years, maybe a decade, until a lot of this stuff really washes out, sad as that may be. But that doesn't mean there's great things along the way. They're telling us every day about, precious metals. Are people taking those hints? Are people seeing when it's shot really high up to 117, it came down, like, hey guys, maybe this is the time to buy. We're seeing it with things with XRP, right? It's just hovering at a certain. So we're being told things. We're jumping on these things. Other people might not. It might take a while. And then you got to look at the generation, because there's a generation now, high school, college. They're going to see things differently. Listen, going back maybe 10, 15 years, I would say everybody saw Israel a certain way. Right? Young people, old people. You talk to any college student today, for the most part, they're not seeing it the way, the mainstream made us see it. I talk to my girls all the time. They see very clearly what's going on in Gaza and, Palestinian, and they understand this in a different way than people, let's say, in our generation. So what's going to happen in another 5 years, another 10 years? You're going to have this whole other generation that's coming up, more enlightened, more open-minded, more in the flood that they were raised, right? My kids talk all the time about pedophilia. They're like, that guy, he's a pedophile. Like, I wasn't thinking that when I was that age. He's just a weird guy. But they talk about teachers that were, taken away. They talk about this. So there's more of an openness about what's really going on. They talk about Hollywood and pedophilia. We grew up in, like, oh, the celebrities, they're so great. They just had a baby. And now these kids are seeing things clearer. So who the hell knows how we're going to evolve? And I just see maybe there'll be some really cool stuff that they'll come out with, for 4th of July. Maybe it'll be an influx of patriotism. There'll be something. But I think we're going to see a while before it rolls into the mainstream. Maybe they'll start getting rid of property taxes in this place. They'll do these little things that will start to build the momentum, just like they built the momentum with taking these drag shows away, right? And changing the way the curriculums are. Like it wasn't a big major announcement, but it started to change, and we started to have a different way of things happening. I mean, that's kind of how I see it.
It's kind of obvious that they're using like an old Greek tactic. We got the World Cup coming here. We're having a racing event in DC. We're gonna have a fist fight on the lawn of the White House. I mean, this is distraction after distraction, or patriotism being built on patriotism, however you want to look at it. And there's going to have to be things in the news cycle that go along with that for it to work. So I can only expect that that's going to happen. Hey, can I address one comment?
Yeah, of course.
Sleeping Giant 1229.
Yeah, I've been noticing that too.
I want to encourage this person to come over to Rumble. The one that I read says, you want open and fair elections, yet we are okay with Dr. Trump / Jesus being dictator, and some will go as far as king in quotes, but only if it's Trump. Oh man, that's a whole episode, my friend. First of all, he wasn't dressed like Jesus; he was dressed like the Pope. Second, he was laying hands, which the Bible tells us to do. I can go on and on. We've done whole episodes on this week. And I want to say something for everybody here right now. I think Donald Trump is the face of a very much larger operation going.
Yeah.
I don't think Donald Trump did any of this on his own. Do I love the man? Absolutely. But I love him for being the main character in what I'm watching go down globally. He did not do this alone. There is absolutely 100% military behind him. And we're going to see amazing and major things go on here. That whole making him as if he's Jesus or king stuff is just amplifying the main character in this movie. It's not, and it really has. I mean, Dave, do you want to correct anything I might have just said?
No, I don't even want to touch that one, to be honest with you, dude. I do want to go back to something that we were talking about with the 4th of July, and also, again, I think.
Sorry, you shared your screen. Do you want me to put it on the?
1 second on that one.
Okay.
Just as far as the 4th, let's also keep something in mind. What have we watched in particular over the last 5 years, right? They have used every opportunity possible to portray the left as insane, right? The flying down to El Salvador to have margaritas with the Maryland man, and trying to break into ICE facilities, and all the not standing up for cancer victims, a child in the State of the Union, right? All this what I believe to be scripted, amplified messaging to show who they are. What better time to continue to do that than during the celebrations of the 250th anniversary, right?
Yeah.
I leave that open. That's why I'm like, do I think it's going to end by the 4th? No, actually, I think you could use some of these events as a way, like, I don't know, I could picture a thing where Congress gets together and all the Democrats vote not to fund celebrations. Think about that. Think about what that would do in the psychology and the normies, right? So that's why I leave that kind of stuff open, or pulling the funding for an event, or protesting in front of the new arch that he's putting up because they hate him. So I leave that kind of craziness open to further show people just how anti-American they are. And yet, going back to Elisa's point about Israel, Stu, if you could put that slide up, take a look at this. Now, you tell me you want a better visual example of a PSYOP working than this. The green line is America's sympathy with Israel, and the blue line is the sympathy with Palestine. Now, you can see for the last 20-something years, there has been a 30 to 40 point difference. And then 10/7 happened, and people started talking. And look at, in 3 years, how quickly those lines change. That kind of change under statistical rules doesn't happen organically. That only happens with either a mass event like a 9/11 type of thing, which we didn't have, or that is the result of constantly pounding the narrative space with messaging that gets people to do exactly what Elisa was saying. Like, hey, wait a second, Maybe it's not all Israel good and Palestine bad. Maybe the truth lies somewhere in the middle. Maybe. And this is Gallup, right? This is not like a right-wing rigged type of poll. But you want a visual example of many of us believed, that 10-7 thing began the Israel exposure psyop. In fact, the delta of that 3 days before on the Q boards was Israeli intelligence stand down. That was October 4th, 10-7. That kicked off. And from there on out, you had narrative seeding going for the last 3 years towards exposing what the Israeli deep state really is. And you don't get a better visual example for the people that say nothing's happening, it's not working. That's a perfect example of how it is working.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The other thing with that you just showed is that we are also seeing more. We didn't see the carnage in Palestine. Like you had to really dig to see that in the past, because it was always the pet. Now, I come from an area in Long Island, is a very big Jewish community. So they've always been very, very, it's America and Israel with the double pin and the whole thing. And you would just hear how awful the Palestinians, and they're blowing up children, and you just hear the one side. Now you're seeing pictures, you're hearing more. So how is that happening? Is it just happening? Is it being released because it was controlled at one point? And pictures go along. We know that from Wag the Dog, right? So is it? And I remember when the 7th happened, oh my God. Now, of course, I was not on that side, but I was talking to people. They couldn't even articulate a common sense thought because they were so emotional. But then all of a sudden, within the next years, a lot of my mom's friends, they're like, yeah, I don't know about Netanyahu. Like, really? So very interesting.
The more absurd it gets and the worse it looks, the more I chuckle to myself.
Yeah. And I think we even touched on earlier, like that's why, people that watch our shows, I mean, one of the biggest things we've been diving into for the last 3 weeks is like, I'm laughing at all the black pilling. I mean, Trump just did it this morning. Where was it? 8:12 this morning. It's easy. Tucker is a low IQ person, always easy to beat, highly overrated. So are Megyn Kelly, Candace, and Alex. He keeps going over the same 4 people that those of us that believe we're paying attention to the show have been like, hey, here are the 4 people that are going to go out and say the things Trump's not allowed to say. And the bottom line is, if everyone loved this war, if gas was 50 cents a gallon, if Nassara was in place and IRS, would anyone be paying attention to get that message? You have to have an unpopular war, and he's purposely making it more unpopular, and he's purposely making himself look crazy, which is driving people. And he's purpose. What do you think happens when he calls out these 4 people?
Oh, the left.
The left is going to go, and some of the right. Let me see what they're saying. And now they're running right into, hey, look, it's Israel. Look what they're doing. So the black pilling doesn't bother me at all. We constantly debate, like, is Trump losing support right now? Absolutely. Of course he is.
Yeah.
So big deal. What, for a month his support goes down? That's not how the military looks at it. They're looking at this as a giant plan, and it's going to go like this. And they know he's going to do things, and people are going to leave, but they also know what's coming on the back end. So yeah. I don't care when people come and say he's losing support. Yep, sure he is, and he's doing it on purpose.
It's the art of war.
Trump always looks like he's about to lose, and then he wins.
Yeah.
Someone in the chat to your point
again and again.
Said Mondami here in New York is doing something like that. No 250th celebration from what I read. Now, perfect example. So that, and I don't know, I didn't read, and they said from what they read, but I haven't seen that, but I could believe it because they have that actor doing some really crazy shit. I mean, when he got elected, I was so excited. I was like, all right, maybe now these people will see some. I don't know.
Yeah, you could see that one coming a mile away, and unfortunately, it's. I think it's only going to get crazier for them.
Yeah.
But you look at what he did yesterday. We were talking about this on Joe's show yesterday. That video that's being circulated, he got slammed by CNBC this morning for standing in front of what was it? I forget whose apartment it was, and he's talking about how he's going to, raise taxes on all the rich.
Yeah.
And I think it's a brilliant psyop, because if you pay attention to at least what we're told, the voting blocks, especially in New York City, like you take Manhattan, all the very wealthy Upper East Side, Upper West Side people that live in these $5, $10, $20 million apartments, for the most part, are the people that are the most disconnected from what's going on, and the ones that voted, at least we're told, for Biden and Harris and everything else.
Yeah.
So now they're sitting there having a guy come in saying, that is aligned with the far left, raising their taxes. Okay, now your move now. Which side do you want to pick? So I think it's perfect.
Yeah, it's fun to watch if you could keep an open mind about what's going on, and hopefully more people will have open minds. I think they are. And I guess they have to have ways in place, like these polls. I think the COVID jab is a great litmus test, because you can look, say, 5 years ago, what's the percentage of people who got it? Then the next year, and then they're still doing advertising in New York for it. Now it's like you could get your flu and your COVID together, so they use these things to do like litmus tests, like, we're all the way down to whatever X percentage of people that are still. So they probably have all these methods, right? Because no one's coming door to door asking you. But you're right. It's a military strategic operation. It's going to ebb and flow.
Yeah,
exactly right.
Joe, how long you got, by the way? Because you've got a show in an hour, haven't you?
Yeah, no, I'm not doing that today.
Oh, right, excellent. Okay.
Those condos, suites, those hotels, or whatever, the stuff that they're taxing in New York, Dave.
Mm-hmm.
Are a lot of those owned by foreign?
Well, I mean, there's a good deal that are owned by foreign, but if you look at what they're doing, I mean, look, the Upper East Side, I mean, the starter home is $1.9 million. So you're talking about literally hitting everybody that lives in that upper tax bracket in New York City. So I think they're going right after the people that, what do we always say? The not to stereotype, but the most disconnected. Look, the other thing that's going on right now is the same thing you have in what is it? I forget, District 11 in New Jersey, which is where like Montclair is and stuff. Like that's another big area where very wealthy people from New York City leave, and it's a very liberal area, and we're getting this crazy woman that's being supposedly installed there. So again, to me, they're hitting they're doing this stuff to hit the crowd that is like super disconnected from reality. So yeah, Joe, there are a lot of foreign people, but it's I would say that's probably, I would guess it's probably less than 10% of the people that are actually affected by it.
Yeah, and I have a girlfriend who's a realtor here on Long Island right now. I'm in a pretty wealthy area of Long Island, like near, Garden City and those areas, right? Very wealthy. And so she was telling me, which it blows my mind. She's telling me how she just put a house up, and this is just an example because it's happening all the time. She just put a house up for something like $2 million or something like that. And people were sending in offers. Like one offer was $200,000 over ask. Wow. Okay. Now I said to her, she said, Elisa, you have to understand, you have no idea how many of these deals are cash deals. And I'm like, where are people getting the money? I mean, I know I don't have that kind of money. And I'm like, and I don't live in Garden City. I moved out after I got divorced, but I'm just saying, like, so you got to figure these people in Manhattan have a boatload. They have that liberal mentality. That's why New York has the reputation that we're so blue and we're so liberal, because the rest of the state for the most part isn't, the Staten Island, a lot of the, upstate isn't, but those are the people that give that reputation. And I think it's brilliant because they're usually the Trump they're the Trump haters. They're the the intellectuals, right?
Mhm.
They're very educated. They know everything. Their kids go to the private schools, and then they start their kids like on kindergarten lists when they're like in the womb. So I think it's great what he's doing, and let it hit them in the pocketbook, because obviously those people aren't the ones pulling out, being angry about what's going on with kids.
Yep, exactly right.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So there's a question that I finally found it. I'd be interested to get your guys' idea getting back onto the kids, right? So the question is, with all these children going missing, 800,000 worldwide, which
It's
I'm not
8
sure
million,
about
I think that
numbers.
is.
What?
I think that's meant to be 8 million,
Is it?
allegedly.
Okay, well, anyway, every year, where are the parents and why is it not covered by MSM?
Wait, what missing kids? I'm sorry, I missed the first portion of that.
Sure.
We're told in this country, we're told 800,000 a year go missing.
Yeah. It's 8 million worldwide, apparently, 22,000 a day.
Where are the parents?
Like if your child is missing.
I can, as somebody that lived in the hood. Okay, first and foremost, there's evil things that happen that most parents would never, in their lives, be able to think that is even possible. Okay, there are people when people are on drugs and or caught up in legal systems or prostitution rings, children that are unwanted. I mean, right, just in the stuff that I've witnessed, you could go ahead and rationalize exactly how at least a large portion of that is going. At least, not to mention farming, not to mention it will start to add up when you've lived and witnessed some of the darkest sides of society. And then you get into the NGOs and you start talking about Amber Alert and some other things. These numbers will start to add up very quickly. As a parent, do I think that would ever be possible, that I would put my child in harm's way that way? It doesn't even seem possible, that level of evil. But we are in a battle of good versus evil, and that evil does exist.
The second half of that question is certainly is very easy to answer. Why does the mainstream media report on it? Because the people the original people that controlled the mainstream media, the CIA, were a big part of the problem, right? That's why. The 800,000, I don't know if it's actually 8, and I know that's going to upset a lot of people. There's about 3.2 million children born in the U.S. every year. So if 800,000 were going missing, that means 1 out of every 4 children is going missing every year. That seems a little high to me.
Yeah.
I think that might be something that is used to help draw us attention. I remember seeing that number and repeating it and being like, oh my God, It is certainly a major problem. It is in the hundreds of thousands. But as far as why it's been going on for so long and the media has never reported on it, is because the people that controlled the media were the same people that were facilitating that trafficking, right? And this is the kind of bigger conversation that, again, going back to our conversation about ripping the Band-Aid off, that's where we're not there yet, right? Yeah. So you have, to your point, Alyssa, I'm with you. The young kids, like, they're awake to Epstein. They're on Epstein. They're on the island. They're on Pizzagate. They're on beef jerky and all these other things. But we haven't yet brought the masses to understand how deep that rabbit hole is, right? Doing things like manipulating presidents and leaders into a war. That's one of the things that's being presented right now. I believe eventually that's going to roll into election fraud, the Supreme Court, other things like that. But this is another whole side of things, the media, right? Why doesn't the media report on human trafficking and missing children and things like that? Well, because that Epstein operation was part of a larger control mechanism, which involved intelligence agencies, and those intelligence agencies controlled the media, and therefore the whole thing was kept from you. There's a lesson right there that the public has to know before we can get over to the other side of this.
Yeah. And I'll go you one better, because from some of the people we've had on our show who bring statistics with them, we know that at least the number, right, that's floated is there's about 35% of trafficked kids. It's familial. It's their father, it's their mother, it's, someone. So
That's what I was getting at.
that right there is a huge number. And who is doing it to these kids? The harder lesson, I think, because we talk about this a lot, it's over there, sound of freedom. Well, it's in those countries and they're poor and they're ignorant. But how about maybe, there's a couple of guys maybe right in your own hometown, right? They're getting their kicks. They're ordering Domino's pizza. We just had Lee Dundas on, and she was talking all about that. And she was talking about, like, if there's a motel, maybe, I'm not going to speculate, but you got really, $600 a night hotels. Maybe they're not, maybe, but you got sleazy motels, you got high-end motels, the different levels of people and where they're, right? You're going to question. High-end hotel, you can make an excuse that someone thinks it's their child, right? A low-end motel, you can make an excuse that it's like a lower income people that are being snuck in. Either way, that's the part that's going to be hard, because I believe on some level, a lot of the industrialized trafficking, they've done a lot through the military, going into the dumbs, clearing out the kids, stopping the containers that are coming in. Like, I think industrialized wise, the military's on that. But then you got to go into these towns where you got like an aunt or an uncle or a mother or a father has 3 kids and they're pimping them out. That's a lot harder to and a guy whose wife goes away for the weekend and he's a pervert or worse, whatever you want. I don't even know what the word is. But so that's, I think, the thing that you're going to have a hard time. And I don't know how they're going to roll that all out, but.
Well, I don't think I think that's where we have to be a little realistic about this. I love the optimism of the people that say we're going into utopia. And like I said, I'd be happy to be proven wrong on that. But I think in reality, things like that have always and probably will always exist. They've existed throughout human history. The key is, what are the things you can do to minimize that, right? So why are people getting to a point where they're doing very desperate things? Well, it's because nobody can afford to live in this country. So that's why, the reality of it is, if you look at, there's a great website called the 1971 problem, and it shows that, as we've devalued our currency, especially post 1971 when we came off the gold standard, how every metric, drug addiction, human trafficking, child abuse, domestic abuse, divorce, everything spiked. It's no secret that while many people don't want to make this about money, they say if you talk about money, you're being greedy. I disagree. Money is a tool. And it's been proven throughout history that the more you make a society poor and desperate, the more they're going to retreat into things like, domestic violence and drug addiction and trafficking and things like that. So if you can make the country, if you can make it so you can actually afford to live in this country again and many other countries, then a lot of that stuff will also work itself out.
There's one thing to add to that, Dave. The more you propagate that on society, the more they become reliant on government, EBT, etc.
Yep.
Right. So you're now using government programs. You're now reliant on you need them, and that becomes your survival, relying on government rather than sustaining your own family.
Yep, absolutely right.
Yeah, 117%.
Yeah, because we've been taught, the root of all evil is money. And I really think the root of all evil is not enough money, because you're absolutely right. And I'm not talking about it from a greed standpoint of worshiping money or thinking you're better than other people, but you're absolutely right. When people can't afford, when people have to work, it is the downfall of everything. Look at every major revolution. People were in poverty. They had nothing else to lose. So I think that's part of this utopia, where we're going to be able to know that we're able to eat, we're able to be housed. You don't have to wake up every day wondering about the bills. You're like, all right, now the luxuries come into play, like going away on vacation and buying nice things. And I would like to think that that's going to happen gradually. More people are making the right investments, or they're looking at, precious metals. They're looking at, I don't know how much more they could tell us to, like we always say on our show, you don't have to buy $100,000 worth of silver. You don't have to buy, all this money worth of crypto. But if you maybe get a little, you can still be in the game. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, that may make a really big difference in your life.
Alyssa, can I add this to that thought? And I think it's a huge consideration. So the Bible doesn't actually say the root of all evil is money. It says for the root of all evil is the love of money.
Right.
There is a huge difference, right? Money can be used for good.
Yeah.
It comes with that love, that greed aspect of money, where the evil kicks in. It's not money itself.
But the church and all these control systems teach us that they twist that. Like if you're really poor, you're doing a good thing. But meanwhile, you're giving all your money to this institution. So it's a mixed message that people think, and I know people, they feel like if they're taking care of themselves or they're taking an inheritance, they're being greedy. And I'm like, you're not being greedy. It depends what you're going to do with that. Are you going to live a nicer life? Are you going to have less stress? Are you going to be able to help your children? Are you going to, they've been so brainwashed that money, and you're right that it's to keep us controlled. Because if we're poor and desperate, they can control us with fear.
Exactly right.
Yeah. Well, let's change this a little bit for a minute. Do you think JFK Jr. is alive?
Joe?
Why you gotta give that to me first? Why would you do that?
I took the date question first. You got to take that one.
Let me show you a little video, right? I've had this saved for years. It's a 17-second video. Trump is walking down the White House lawn. And then you hear the reporters going, John. I don't know if you've seen this video, have you? John. And then two people walk down the White House lawn. Looks like JFK Jr. and a blonde lady with him, potentially Caroline. Now, people say to me, oh, it could be anyone. Yes, but not anyone can walk down the White House lawn and get onto Marine One with Trump, can they? So let me just play this and tell me what you think.
Whatever. Look, how many people in the country are named John?
Yeah, correct.
Here, I'll give you my best spin move. You want to hear my best spin move?
I'm just saying this because he's been brought back into it so much now. The picture of Trump as Jesus, the guy laying down with his hand, and he looks a bit. There's a cameo role, isn't there, in Love Story of the pilot?
Allegedly.
Yeah, it's all allegedly, isn't it?
You're feeding right into my spin move. All right, look, I'll tell you the truth. I'll give you different examples. Everybody knows I'm obsessed with Michael Jackson. I don't think that he died the way that we were told. We had Charlie Kirk and Kash Patel say something really cool where he said, we'll see you in Valhalla. What the hell did that mean? Right? I don't know if you guys saw my connection on that, but I was watching The Walking Dead. And at the end of The Walking Dead, I find out it's filmed by Valhalla Productions out of Georgia, the same place where they have the replica of the White House. Super interesting to me, right? So all these dots connect. And, I remember RFK touching his nose. I've looked into the airplane crash and the Hillary JFK start. I've done all this with everybody. Do I hope that he's still alive? Sure.
Yeah.
Can I prove it? Absolutely not. Can I prove it to myself with that level of hope? Sure. I 100% would love to see JFK Jr. come out and be like, yo, I told Trump he could put his name on the side of that building with me. Right? Like I would love for that to happen. Sure. I usually don't talk about this because, it's also how we get crapped on so easily.
Yeah.
Right. But I've noticed something here recently, and I think this goes with it, right? So whether he's alive or he's not, his spirit is alive. Like there's 100% a huge part of this movement that loves that man and dreams of seeing him walk out on stage. I mean, they're turning everybody that even looks close to him into JFK. Look at him. He's on screen. That's him. I know it's him. I know that's her. Right. So do I don't know. I think it's 100% whether he is or he isn't. It's 100% part of this psyop.
Yeah.
And it's a huge part of the lesson we're being given historically. And that's my best spin move.
I would say, as far as the story of how he died, 117% false.
False.
There is simply no human being on earth that is dumb enough to stand up and say, I will expose my father's killers, even if it means bringing down the entire government. And then he supposedly rolls up to Teterboro Airport by himself on a Friday night and just gets on a plane without checking it. Like that. I'm sorry, that no. And then keep in mind, the plane went missing at about 9 p.m. on July 16th. They waited 5 hours until 2 a.m. So he was actually reported missing, not on the 16th, but on the 17th. You're told the search radius around Martha's Vineyard was 17 miles. And when they did the funeral on the boat, when they found him, there were 17 people present. They gave you some clues there that he faked his death. Now, so I don't believe he died that day. There's so many holes in that story. It's absurd. As far as and yes, they're seeding the hell out of it lately. You had the documentary that came out on CNN last summer. It came out on August 9th, 8, 9, 17. They started on a 17. They just had one that came out. It's like the #1 series on Fox. Trump has slipped up and said his name and number. They're giving you a lot of clues. So I don't know. Like if he is still alive, I'm not sure. Again, I would file that one under the category of, that's one of the ones where people are like, oh, one day, we're going to wake up and they're just going to roll him out on stage and they're going to say he's alive. Well, again, if you did that right now, there goes anybody paying attention to anything you're trying to put out in the news cycle for the next year.
Yeah.
At least, because you get interviews and he's going to be making appearances and filling. So if that is in the cards, and I don't know if it is, that would be, I think, way, way, way down the road. I know a lot of people have it. Well, that would wake a lot of people up. Yeah, sure. But it would also get everyone to completely stop paying attention to everything else that they still need to learn about Fed and the elections and all the other things we've talked about on this show. It would just completely dominate the news cycle.
Yeah. And I'm not sure it would wake them up. It would get their attention. There's a big difference because now they're going to see, oh, Camelot, oh, everything's great and beautiful. And it's going back into a slumber because somebody that, you love is back. I don't know what that really does.
Yeah, but it's not just that, is it? Because it would wake a lot of people up, but it would also validate the Q movement potentially. And I think, like Dave said, we're going to see a lot of stuff happen before that happens anyway, and a lot of stuff will happen after it.
I think he's gonna pop the door open on the Resolute desk and show Joe Biden. he's just gonna pop it over like, hey, and he's gonna have Joe Biden's mask in his hand.
We were talking about how more absurd it was getting. You showed on one of your shows they were doing the No Kings dance. Do you remember when they were going, we all touch our elbows, put our hands in the air? I want to know if you've been doing that with your little hands, Joe.
No, I do love my little hands. These are all gifts. I have so many hands. I have no idea that my, I don't know what to do with my hands thing became so popular, but I got given a lot of hands at the last event. It's pretty cool. I got hands all over the place.
Okay, so the cue drop that says, just tell us if you guys got to go at any time. The cue drop that says you can count the people who know on two hands. Of those, less than 10, 3 are non-military.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think Trump is non-military or actually one of those military? If he is part of that 9,
I would say he's tech. I guess.
He's a military man, isn't he?
He is, but if we make the argument that he was read into this before he was president, then I would say maybe he's one of the non.
He's president in exile leads me to believe, even being the commander in chief itself, that's a civilian position.
Oh,
It's not-
you have to be civilian, don't you? Yeah.
So depending on where you think he's sitting, like I said, I think he's the face of an operation. Well, you know what? So was every other president. They were all installed. They were all puppets of somebody, right? And so what better, for lack of a better term, puppet would be the one that's backed by finally the White House, right? And I'm not even saying that, I don't even need to get into that debate. He may not even be the first one being controlled by white hats. That's all I'm saying. I don't want to have to go into that. It's a whole nother episode. But I also want to add that, that drop was written a long time ago, and we've come a long way. I could only think logically that number has grown. Right. And of course it says, that operators are read into levels that they need to know, right? Need to know basis, right? The military is compartmentalized. Not everybody needs to know everything, but I would still guess that number's grown a bit, right? Fully read in.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would also say that when it comes to him, look, we could go down so many rabbit holes and the whole, Patton and all that stuff, right? But I think I don't buy the story that he was such a bad kid and they sent him to military school. I don't buy that. Okay. I just don't. So he was trained in some way, shape, or form as military. He's at the head of the spear in that picture at what, 18, that whatever age he was in that picture. So I don't know officially, like if he's military, but if you go back and say, this is 2026 and we know that he's been involved in sting operations that we know of, right, since the early 80s, then I would sort of put him in a little bit of a different category, even if there were white hat presidents, because I think he probably had a lot more people around him. Or, again, if we go into bloodline and all that stuff, it could be a much bigger picture of his role and what his duty was, if you will, in saving the republic. So I think he's probably, and look, I mean, we really don't know. We don't know if he's as brilliant as we think he is, right? Is he part of central casting? Are they giving him stuff? But I think we have to assume he's probably a really smart man. He's really smart. He's strategic. And if that's the case, he was probably seen as an important asset to the white hats from early on, or groomed for that.
Yeah, and I think he would have to be brilliant to be able to execute, even as an
I
acting
agree.
role. Yeah,
I was just playing devil's advocate,
yeah.
And his connection to his uncle and Tesla, like there's too many anomalies that tell you this isn't just a guy, even the best of our presidents, right? And then we don't know. What's their history? Is it all connected? Is there a line that puts, a thread that threads them all together? From Lincoln to Kennedy there's so much we just don't know that we can speculate positively about, but we don't, it's not like we're there. We know, we don't.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's important to identify that, because that's kind of where some of the unnecessary arguments happen. We get in Telegram and in chats, as people do exactly. So it's fun to do that kind of stuff, to speculate, and you're doing it in the right way, because like you're identifying that we're speculating. Then people take this stuff and they're like, no, I know. Like, I had somebody the other day, like, he is Patton's son. I'm like, well, how do you know? How do you know that? You heard
unless
somebody
you were there.
say it. Right. Do you have the DNA report? I'm not saying he's not.
Right.
But I can't say he is. Like,
no.
I don't know.
It's irresponsible, particularly as us as podcasters, unless we were physically there and we know something from our own eyes and experience. You can't possibly say with 100% certainty, even if we feel that in our heart, we can't say that. And a lot of people do. And people then carry those narratives, and we don't know. I mean, I'll throw another one out. How do we know time travel doesn't exist? How do we know he isn't Patton? We could just keep speculating. But at the end of the day, that's all it is.
Yep.
But what he has given us should you look at it the right way, because it's been played both angles, right? The left wing paints Donald Trump as a moron that doesn't know how to speak. He lies, and et cetera, et cetera. Everything, and our side sees Kofefe and the oranges and the columns, four or fifth generation, or 5D chest, rather 4D chest. Do you know what that means? I know what that means, right? We're sort of having my second term right now. Am I going to be considered 2-term or 3-term? You tell me, right? My man drops just enough to let people that are paying attention and respect the words coming out of his mouth to understand there's something bigger going on. And the way he does it lends to the left going, this guy's a moron.
Mm-hmm.
And so we then realize we're at war. And so literally a war of words. This is 5th generation warfare encapsulated. My man is the king of 5GW.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't hurt that, in my opinion, when I say he, I mean they have full control of the media on what we consider to be both sides. They're playing into it. This whole thing is a psyop.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, someone just put in the chat that there was talk that President Trump really died in a helicopter crash in 1989. Do you believe that ever happened? I don't know. That's my best answer to the whole thing. I don't know.
No.
Him and Kobe are playing basketball right now.
I mean, we just don't know. We just have to try to use critical thinking. And at the end of the day, what's the best thing about having critical thinking? It's about taking control of yourself, standing up for yourself, not falling for lies and living in fear, and doing what you can to be free.
Well, I'll give you a great example. Is it possible that he died in a helicopter crash in 1999 and they're using a 100% fabricated character to do The Apprentice and do this whole thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. However, I keep getting asked about that, and I'm like, what helicopter? Like, are there images? Like, I've never even seen somebody send me a link. Like, by the way, here is the helicopter crash we are talking about.
Yeah, it's just made
It's
up.
just literally like somebody saw it on Telegram, and they repeat it, and they repeat it, and they repeat it, and they repeat it. Like, maybe there is images somewhere, but like I said, it's not even like somebody's like, hey, here's the news story. This is the helicopter. It had this tail number on it. It was registered to one. It's just literally like people just repeat stuff, and it takes on a life of its own. So sure, anything is possible, but I would love anybody that believes that, and I'm really not trying to be sarcastic at all. Please send me whatever evidence you have. Like, where was this helicopter crash? What color was it? Like, I don't know. I've never heard anything besides he died in a helicopter crash.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. And here I'll give you one that I do enjoy debating. Right. So that one makes no sense to me because there's nothing that I can find that's sauce driven. You know, but then you got something where it's like, okay, this is historic. Donald Trump says how many years ago, as he's talking about Wienergate, he also brings up Pizzagate. Well, at the same time, there was a news story that Pizzagate was literally just about Donald Trump eating a piece of pizza with a knife and a fork rather than picking it up and folding it and shoving it into his mouth. Okay, so now we can debate, is that a coincidence that he says, I was paying attention to Pizzagate, but then I got distracted by Wienergate? Or was that foreknowledge well before, right? That's even speculation because they put out the news story about eating pizza with a knife and a fork. But at least we have something to debate over because holy crap, is that a coincidence?
Yeah.
You can't just tell me like, hey, he died in a helicopter crash and I'm just going to believe you.
No, didn't he say that in like 2011? It came out and didn't start coming out till 2015, like 4 years later, something like that. So that sort of time. Yeah.
Yep.
I'd love to get your opinion on what's going on in the UK, because I believe we're going through the Biden years here with Keir Starmer. I believe he's 117% controlled. We've got this stuff going on with Nigel Farage, the split with Rupert Lowe. We saw in that advert for the Restore Party, the O turned into a Q. And then we've got all this immigration problem with people coming over in the boats. Now, are they immigrants coming over? Are they part of some military operation? under the guise of immigrants for what potentially could happen somewhere down the line?
Well, it's a great question, and you know, I think it's everything you just laid out, Stu. Again, without being there on the ground and seeing it, to me, sounds like an exact mirror of what we went through in the United States, right? So while we were looking at Biden, who I think we all agree was a controlled white hat proxy, let's call it, we were presented with this psyop of 20 million people coming through the border. Now, those of us that did our homework know that there wasn't 20 million that came through the border. There were many, many millions that came through the border for the last 15, 20 years while none of us were paying attention, right? And then all it took was throwing a few people into the Roosevelt Hotel and into Aurora, Colorado, and some of these other places, and all of a sudden everyone goes, oh, look, we have a problem. Now I want to take care of it. So we know that, you know, we all know over here, at least the awakened ones, that the mass migration problem that really arose out of all these Middle East wars that pushed so many Muslim and other people into Europe, that's been going on for 25 years. That's not anything new. So you guys already have that problem. So again, you see the mirrors here. It's like all of a sudden everyone, you know, even over here, we're getting this news of, oh my God, look what's going on in the UK. We have Muslim mayors and this and that. And so to the people here, it's being presented like it's this new thing. Oh my God, we have to all worry about the UK. Well, you guys know that's been going on for a very long time. But for whatever reason, it's being brought to the forefront right now. And you know, you have the gas situation going on in Ireland right now. People running at, you know, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of buttons being pushed. So I do find it interesting that it does seem like you guys are, unfortunately, getting kind of your Biden treatment. And this Rupert Lowe character is a very, very interesting one to me because, again, a lot of people would have pointed to Nigel Farage for such a long time because Trump would have him on stage and this and that. But he's not exactly, you know, Britain first, if you will. And then you start to listen to some of the speeches that this Rupert Lowe guy is giving. And it's like he might as well be carrying Trump's exact script. And then you know that video with the Q and everything. Yeah. So yeah, we did the show. It was on D-Class, and we kind of said, well, it seems like they are setting up the UK in the narrative space to kind of reach their breaking point. And now here will be hopefully your solution, and you guys will be off to the races on a UK first type of situation. That's kind of how I see it.
Totally agree.
Dave explained that much more specifically than I would, but he did reference that mirror aspect, and everybody remembers the messaging that we got early on about, you know, America falls, so goes the world. Well, if America stands, sure, there might be a lag. If this goes the way we think it's going right now, all of those details are going to be tough, some of them to get through. But I truly believe we go back to sovereignty within nations. And, you know, Donald Trump talked about an even playing field. So do I think it's America's responsibility to fix everyone else's issues? Nobody's given them the opportunity to do such.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, look, we've just gone over 2.5 hours. I know you like to keep your show about 2.5 hours, Joe, Dave. So final thoughts, a little message for the black pillars, the doomers and gloomers, the panic hands.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you guys for having us on. This has been a lot of fun, and I can't wait for next week to be there up in New York in person with you guys. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. You know, I just think I think people need to look back. If they're finding themselves getting wrapped up in what's going on in the news cycle right now, that's one of the reasons Joe and I both together and on our respective platforms individually are constantly bringing up stuff from the past. Because I think whenever you get when people get desperate or they feel a sense of despair or they feel down, like stop and think about where we are at this point, right? We're sitting here in April. We're barely halfway through April of 2026. And in just the first 3 months of this year, we have brought Epstein to the forefront of the world. Something that was a conspiracy theory. Pizzagate has been brought to the forefront of the world. You have billions and billions and billions of impressions and people online dissecting a moon mission. And we have every major podcast in the world discussing whether or not the moon landing even happened. Right? This is things that, it seems par for the course for us, but like, if you had gone back 5 years and said, one day, like Joe Rogan's going to be talking about Pizzagate, come on, that's crazy. So I think it's important not to forget that every one of us has, I think everybody probably has a different. Joe asked a great question before, which we've done on the air, which is, what do you recognize as being the end of this, or what are you waiting for? And I think when you ask people that, you get different questions. Some people it's financial, some people it's tribunals, some people it's I want my husband. Everyone's got a different need. And so I think it's important to understand that and realize, like, whatever it is whatever you're maybe waiting for that will make you feel better about what we've gone through, like, in the meantime, don't lose sight of all the other things that have gotten done. You have the Rothschilds being openly discussed by Fox News and Tucker Carlson and Joe Rogan and Patrick Bet-David. That was a name that was one of those names that Trump said are the people you've never heard of before.
Right.
You have a lot of good things that are out in the information space. And so I think it's just important to kind of stop sometimes and look and see, although we all have different things we're waiting for, stop and focus on how different things are than they were even 2 or 3 years ago.
Brilliant.
Great answer.
I'll take my moment. Dave did a great job. I agree wholeheartedly with everything he just said. I want to address some of the chat. There's a reason I'm not doing my show today. Everybody's asking, at least the people I'm seeing ask. Jay Efnon couldn't make it today. Paul wasn't feeling great. Patrick, of course, would have been there. I chose to give my time to this show, also because I'm going in for surgery on Monday. And so I got a lot of work to do to try to put something together for everybody for next week. Plus, of course, I'll be on tonight with Dave. So my plate was just very full. I hope you guys can forgive me for that. And of course, I want to show gratitude to you two, Stu and Alyssa, for having me on today. This has been an absolute blast. I can't wait to hang out with you next weekend. It's going to be awesome.
Brilliant. No, it's been an absolutely magical to have you two guys on. Keep doing what you're doing. Thank you, everyone in the chat. We've got a little 2.5 minute outro with our affiliates, but if you're going to shoot off, make sure you stay for the first 20 seconds of it, okay? Because I've had a little mess about with Trump. So keep doing what you're doing out there, everyone. Together we win. Where we go, one we go all. And good luck with you up, Joe. I was going to say that anyway.
Yeah, sending prayers.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next week.
Bye, everyone. Love you.
Make sure you're watching Stu's News and Patriots across the pond for some of your awakening information. Amazing guests every week from Monday to Saturday. Visit patriotsacrossthepond.com and follow Stewie and Elisa today on Rumble for the live shows. And remember, where we go one, we go all.
In a world flooded with noise, clarity has become rare. People are questioning what they're told and searching for something real. Mr. Heal's modern wellness meets old school remedies. CBD tinctures, methylene blue, gummies and edibles, THC-free wellness, and functional remedies crafted with old school care and modern precision. Biozox, a trusted source for ivermectin and fenbendazole. Biozox, believe your health decisions should be yours, not dictated by politicians or big pharma. Crafted with purpose and precision, freedom forged coffee, cacao and mushroom tinctures, small batch roasted coffee, rich cacao and functional mushrooms crafted with purpose. Verity Metals, redefining what precious metals investing should be. Why choose Verity Metals? We're not just another gold dealer. We're a trusted retirement partner. Our clients choose us because we lead with education, integrity, and transparency. Medical bills are the leading cause of bankruptcy in the United States, accounting for 66.5% of bankruptcies. We can all agree the healthcare system is broken. There is an alternative: impact health sharing, which Yahoo News is calling the disruptor in the $4.6 trillion healthcare system. For more information, visit patriotsacrossthepond.com.